You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. Joining him is everyone's favorite coach and hair model, Chris, aka Tex McQuilkin, Power Athlete's Director of Performance. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
So what's up, man? So for the people, obviously, that maybe don't know you, I mean, we do, as we were getting time to wrap it. It's always nice to talk to another NFL player, especially another offensive lineman who played the game as you should. So I'm excited to get into some of that stuff. But can you talk a little bit about how you got here, a little bit on the history? Because that, to me, is always amazing to hear the origin story.
Absolutely, man. Take it way back. I was born in New York City. Lived in Brooklyn till I was 10 years old. Parents got divorced when I was 7. Mom moved my brother and I out to LA. At some point in there, around 7 or 8 years old, I was at my grandparents' house in Connecticut watching the late morning summer news, and the Jets and the Giants came on in training camp, and I thought to myself, that's what I want to do when I grow up. There was a lot of chaos in my childhood, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of darkness, it was very chaotic. And so I saw football as this vehicle for me to transcend those circumstances. And my mom would never let me play. Finally, going into my freshman year of high school, with the help of my dad, convinced her to let me play football. And we were talking about it just a second ago. It was this outlet for me to just unleash this rage inside of me onto other people and be celebrated for it. And I initially went out and tried out for quarterback, desperately wanted to be quarterback. And the coach came up to me after 1 or 2 days of summer practice. He said, Eb, you could have a really bright future as an offensive lineman. I said, really? Fuck that. I don't know, man. But eventually I said, okay. And I just totally fell in love with it. And it was this straight line rocket ship to the moon, because I saw it in my mind's eye. I visualized it. And every day I woke up and I just carried myself as this warrior. I ate, I trained, I breathed, I lived as this gridiron gladiator. And that was who I was and what I was. And everything I did was in alignment with achieving this dream of making it to the NFL. So around, I don't know what it was, junior year, going into junior year, started getting all the scholarship offers. And that was really, as you, I'm sure, can relate, John, and Tex too, I'm sure.
Hey, D3, no scholarships, but
no scholarships in D3.
I've heard John talk about it.
You know, you start to get those scholarships, and this thing starts to really materialize.
It becomes real.
It becomes so real, and this idea of someone is going to pay for me to go to college, get an education, get a degree, and pay me to basically play football.
That's exactly what my dad said to me.
Yeah.
He's like, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. They're going to pay you to go to college and get a degree?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And he was like, holy, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah, this is a fucking game changer. And looking back now, I see even more, seeing how many people are in debt and had to take out loans to go through college. And I have none of that. And like, what a fucking blessing that was.
Unbelievable. And where'd you go to college?
I went to the University of Arizona.
So you went to, smart motherfucker. I had no vision of becoming an NFL player. So I chose to go to the hardest school I could because I wanted the best degree on my wall. So that's why I went to Berkeley. If I had known I was going to play for a decade in the NFL, I would have totally gone to Arizona State.
I love that. Really?
Oh, yeah. When I was in the NFL, we had a guy, the best friend of my roommate. He played for the Cardinals, and he came out. He went to Ivy League and played. We went out there and visited him, and I was like, oh my God, I've never in my life seen this many pretty girls like partying. Like Berkeley was not like this. And I was like, fuck, I totally chose the wrong school.
Well, Cal was one of the schools that was after I had committed to Arizona.
Where were you living in Southern California?
Burbank.
In Burbank, out in the valley?
In the valley, yeah. And going to John Burroughs High School, committed to Arizona. I had every school in the Pac-10. I had Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, and Cal and Oklahoma till the end. Even after committing to Arizona, they were still
On you.
on me.
Yeah.
And Mike Stoops, who was my head coach at Arizona, God bless him, love Mike. He had to call both coaches up and say, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Because at that time, and unfortunately, Arizona's had, some stumbles along the way after Mike really built him into a pretty solid program while I was there. But we were coming out of, that was a 10-year drought, no bowl games at the U of A.
Sure.
After the Desert Storm era.
Oh yeah,
Teddy.
Teddy, Rob Waldorf.
Yeah, Rob Waldorf. Like,
dude,
I mean, those guys.
Oh yeah, I mean the flex defense.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
There were some savages on there.
Dude, probably the scariest thing. I mean, we game planned an entire offseason for them.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that.
Because the flex defense was so unconventional, and and then they had such a monster at defensive tackle, so it was like you either run at the flex or you go into Rob's jaws. I mean, it was. They were good players, and then who was also on that team was it was Brewski, Rob Waldrop, and they had one other guy that was another pretty good player.
Ricky Hunley.
Yeah,
He might have been a little older, but
yeah, there was.
I know not a star. Was Wendler on that team?
Jim Wendler was on that team. Yeah, when we had him on the podcast, I don't know. I think he was a fullback.
He was a fullback.
He was a fullback. I mean, fullback's such a weird position because they don't even have that. I mean. I was watching the NFL yesterday, and I might have seen one play where they put a tight end as H-back.
Yeah, San Francisco's
yeah
got him rolling. But.
I mean, but yet if you wanted a fullback, it was pretty much Tony Richardson, who I played with at the Chiefs. I mean, Tony was like everybody's fullback. He went to the Jets. He played 15, 16 years as a fullback. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's a bummer that position has died out.
Well,
it'll come back.
Well, they had to.
Yeah.
Just because they don't ram the ball down anymore.
Right.
I mean, it's because, I mean, the, God, I'm totally going to forget his name. Kevin Turner, who I played with, who was
passed.
Rest in peace. He was the old vet when I came into the Eagles. And watching KT go through the hole and watching linebackers fill on him and the collisions were like nothing I've ever seen to this day. And that guy fucking brought it.
Yeah.
And, ended up passing away from ALS. And to say that, those hits didn't play a part in the whole thing is just dishonors his memory. But I will tell you, that guy was one of the best people, nicest dudes I ever met, and played the game. And for me, and I know we were talking about this, there's a respect for people that played the game the way they should have played the game.
Yeah.
And the way that I viewed it to be played.
Yeah.
And fuck all the accolades, the Hall of Fame, all that other shit. There's people in the Hall of Fame that didn't play the game the way I thought they should have, and there's people that'll never make it that played it. So
absolutely.
It's, and I think what's cool in the NFL is people know if you did the job. There's no fucking snowballing the people that did the job.
Yeah, it's absolutely. So Arizona had an incredible time, great career, captain, All-American, all the stuff. Did my thing there. Ended up leaving a year early. I was a redshirt junior. We won the Vegas Bowl, beat the shit out of BYU. So really came and accomplished what I set out to do when I came there, was getting Arizona back to a bowl game. I wanted to be a part of that team. And we did that. Went into the NFL draft 2009, got drafted by the Jags, 39th overall. Went to Jacksonville, played there for 4 years, started at right tackle, got moved to left guard, had a handful of pretty bad injuries, had a bad back injury, herniated disc, L5-S1, which just wreaked havoc on my sciatic nerve, shut down, a lot of atrophy in my right leg. Had shoulder surgery my second year while battling the back injury, and ended up having back surgery the following year when we were after the lockout. Came back from the lockout, went straight into training camp, and I'd had shoulder surgery the year before, had the shoulder fixed, but the sciatic nerve was still a mess. So Jack Del Rio, the head coach, it was basically the end of the first week of training camp, said, Eb, we really need you this year. We need you at your best. So I'm going to suggest you just go have surgery. At that point, I'd had a handful of epidurals, didn't do anything. Just like putting a Band-Aid. It wasn't even a Band-Aid, sure. Honestly. So he said, Eb, I think you should just go have surgery, get it done, get it cleaned up, and come back and get ready to roll.
You mean get the back cleaned?
Yeah. get the back fixed. So I did that. Came out of surgery, could have burst into tears because it felt like somebody had pulled this piece of glass out of the electrical circuit board of my body. Like, I didn't realize, I think when you have an injury like that, that is not only a physical issue, but it's affecting your nervous system every single day. And you're just walking around in this low hum of fight or flight constantly.
Sure.
And because you're in so much pain, you don't realize how exhausting that is and how much that wears you out. So when I came out of surgery and there was no pain anymore, I felt like a newborn baby. I was like, oh my God, this was the best thing I've ever done. So come out of surgery, fly back to Jacksonville, start the rehab. I'm back on the field. This was the second week of training camp. So I'm back on the field on it. It was a very quick recovery. And the surgeon, who was a former collegiate athlete, guy, Dr. Brigham up in North Carolina, he actually passed away since. But he was like, Eb, don't baby this. Get on it. Start strengthening your back, strengthen your legs, hit the Stairmaster. And I just fucking did it. I was just pounding sand every day. I'm fucking in there, busting my ass, getting stronger. And I was back in the starting lineup by week 3.
Shit.
They had moved me to left guard because the guy who came in to start for me at right tackle was doing a good job. We didn't really have a left guard.
Sure.
My coach, Andy Heck, do you know Andy?
Yeah, real well.
Love Andy. Andy looked at me, came in, him and Jack actually came in. They said, Eb, when you were coming out of college, we looked at you, we thought you could be an all-pro left guard. So what do you think about moving there? I said, sounds fun. Sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
I enjoyed playing left guard dramatically more than right tackle.
Left guard became my favorite spot.
Just hold down the A gap and fuck dudes up.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Exactly. I was like, okay. So I came in. I'm literally having the best year of football I've ever had. Kicking ass, just fucking dominating. And we had just played the Bengals. I had 3 plays in a row in that game where I pulled around the edge and chopped these linebackers in half for long runs. Offensive coordinator on Monday came in and was like, yeah, you're looking like the fucking all-pro that we all know you could be. And we're going to play Pittsburgh the next week. I wake up in the hotel room Sunday morning and I can barely get up because my back is completely seizing up. And I think to myself, fuck it, I'll be okay. I'll pop a pill. I'll get in the training room. I'll
little contrast.
I'll get the contrast. Yeah. I'll get warmed up. I'll be good to go by game time. And it just got worse. By the time I got to the training room, I got right on the table, had my dude, heat pack, Theragun, just working it out. He worked on me for about 45 minutes. I tried to push myself up off the table, couldn't get up off the table because my back is totally spasmed. Still, I'm thinking to myself, I'll be fine. Let me get a couple stretches. I walk over to my locker, lay down on my back, start doing my stretches, close my eyes, open my eyes. There's Jack Del Rio, Andy Heck, our offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter. They're looking down on me. They go, Eb, can you go today? And I'm like, yeah. And I tried to get up, couldn't get up off the floor. They're like, all right, Eb, you're sitting out today. So basically at that time I thought, did I crack my hip? I don't know what's happening. I took that game off, watched from the sidelines. They plugged in. And I was actually going to start back at right tackle that game. And so they gave me the next week off, and they said, Ed, maybe we hurried you back. You've been kicking ass. Let's just give you a little time off. Did a couple MRIs. Nothing really came up, but it wasn't getting better. Mm-hmm. And after basically the next week, so I'd taken the week off, did an MRI. Nothing came up. Came back the next week. It was still not good. Nothing was improving. And even came in to watch film the following week, parked my car in the players' lot. I'm walking through the players' lot, and my back spasmed so bad I'm brought to my knees, and I had to have a couple guys literally walk me into the training room. Did another MRI the next day, and it turns out I had an infection in the disc.
Oh no.
This is 11 weeks after surgery. I had an infection in the disc. They start me on 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotics.
Was it staph?
It wasn't staph. It was a very low virulent bacteria. It was the same bacteria that causes acne.
Oh. Was it from the surgery,
Well,
or do they know?
I think I know. And it's, frankly, it was mishandled in the first couple days of coming back from the surgery and just getting into a pool too fast.
Yeah.
And I'm a 22-year-old kid at that time.
Sure.
What am I going to say? Okay, we're going to tape it up and seal it up, and I guess that's good enough.
Yeah.
So my season's over. 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotics. I lose like 30 pounds.
Which absolutely fucking destroys you.
Yeah. The team gets sold. Head coach gets fired. One morning, I was just like, they actually just had me stay home.
Yeah.
From that point on.
Well, which is what they do, because they don't want the other players seeing sick and injured players. Like when I tore when I ruptured my patellar tendon, they were like, "Hey, what time should I be at meeting?" They're like, "We want you to show up at 10 o'clock."
Yes, exactly.
And so I couldn't show up before 10.
Just come into the training room.
And then they were like, "Hey, don't walk in the front door if you have to."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You fucking assholes."
I know.
And then it was like I had to hang out in there. And then all of a sudden, when they went out to practice, now you can go out to the watch film. It was,
Yeah. You know how it is. Which is a super alienating experience as a player. Because for me, this was my family. These were my brothers. Coaches were like, my father figures, honestly. And I really looked up to all these people and gave everything I had. I would have fucking killed myself on the field for those guys.
Yeah.
And so to have this experience of first that very isolating, alienating experience of being like, you need to just stay at home and come in at 10 and just come into this training room. And, so I bust my ass. I work my ass off. We get the infection cleared out of there. I work my way back. I mean, I missed the rest of that season, but getting ready for the following season, we've got a new head coach. There's new team ownership. The whole thing has been fucking totally blown up.
Yeah.
And frankly, it was like oil and water. I don't know. At that point now, I'm going into my 4th year. It's a contract year. Got a new head coach who, for whatever reason,
Who is the new head coach?
Mike Malarkey.
That's right.
Malarkey.
Yeah, I'm trying to the Jags are such a black hole for me because they're so fucking awful.
Yeah.
That when you said Jack Del Rio, I was like trying to and then they sold to the president, the Khan dude.
Shad Khan,
Yeah, and what a fucking terrible organization.
I mean, that's the simplest way to put it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, I mean, I was very fortunate to play for the Eagles and the Chiefs, which are two pretty good organizations. And I have friends that went to go play for Cincinnati and some of these other teams. And you realize very quickly that there's different tiers.
Yes.
And there's a reason that certain teams win. I told Tex, for me, the biggest one was the food. The food at the Eagles, our first year was awful. Andy likes to eat, so they fixed that. Our food was like magic. You walked in every day. It was the most amazing thing. I was speeding to work because I wanted to eat. And then the guy they hired comes over. He's like, "Hey, if there's anything you want me to cook for you when you leave, I'll bring it." So I would bring him steaks and roasts and this. The guy bought a smoker to cook shit for me. And he's like,
"That's fucking amazing.
Here's your turkey when you leave." And I was like I am so simple. If somebody cooks for me and it's good, I'll fucking walk on hot glass for you.
I love that.
And then when I got traded to Kansas City, the food was cold cuts and was awful. And I was like,
Who was the head coach then?
Dick Vermeil.
Oh, okay.
So I played.
How was Dick?
Dick was a really interesting dude. I liked him a lot as a person, but there was one problem. In every meeting, he would tear up, fight the tears.
Every time.
Every day.
Interesting.
Right?
I mean, tears sometimes are powerful.
Never shed, but he would get welted, but no tear came out. So it was as if he had no tear ducts or it was fake. So if he just shed one tear to the point where people would be like, "It's coming," and then people would look, they'd be like, "Did you see a tear?" No. We never once saw his eyes. He'd be like, "Oh, you guys." and never glistened. And we were like, maybe he doesn't have tear ducts. Maybe this. And like I remember leaving, and one of the guys was like, "If that motherfucker would just shed a tear, we'd win the Super Bowl."
Oh my god!
But I always liked him a lot. He did some shit that I think was really not very smart. Like and I'll just give you some of the negatives. He had a stat dude who like he would bring this dude in who crunched like historic numbers over 20 years. Teams that are on the road with one takeaway up by 4 points win 97% of the games. So he would give us all these stats, and Dick thought it was great. The only problem was during the game, if all of a sudden one of those stats went, like if we gave the ball away at home and we were down by 4, people were like, "Oh, 97% of the time we lose this game. We're in the fucking tank." To the point where I finally told him, I was like, "Stop with these fucking stats. These young guys are going in the tank the minute the shit doesn't go well because you're giving them these fucking numbers."
Yeah.
I would go in there, and I even told him, "Tell the motherfucker to lie." Like just give us lies. It doesn't matter. So he thought it was great to give these guys information. The problem is not everybody's cerebral enough to realize this. Like he's trying to give us information, and guys are pretty emotional. And I think for like the cast of emotional people, like giving them that information was not intelligent. And then the other one, they were, I guess like every team, here's the game plan. And I was very fortunate to play with Will Shields and Willie Rofe and some really good players. Will especially, Casey Wigman, Brian Waters, guys that had a ton of mileage underneath our belts. So
was Jordan Black there?
Oh yeah, he was. I'll give you a good Jordan Black story.
I love Jordan.
Jordan was our young guy. Was trying to fucking find his way in the world, and I think as he matured, I'm amazed. Like I didn't think he was going to get 10 years. Yeah. When he was a young guy, I figured he was in and out. And he had a pretty bad experience playing against Dwight Freeney in the playoffs. But ended up going on and being a solid player. Yeah,
he was another guy. I was telling you, they brought Trey in and they brought Jordan Black in. And Jordan really, he was a huge influence for me. Just as like, you need, as a young guy coming into the league, you need veterans who can just show you the way.
Learn how to be a professional.
That's it, man. Learn how to be a professional. Learn how to take care of yourself. Learn that this is a business. Learn how to navigate that world because it's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of pit holes, and a lot of pitfalls. But Jordan was a young guy. And
that's a great group, man.
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate. I played on, for the Eagles. I think we were super successful, one of the best lines, and I got a chance to go start on probably the best line in pro football history.
That's
with
amazing.
Willie, Brian Waters, Will Shields and Casey Wigman, and Jason Dunn, Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, those guys. But what was interesting was when I was in Philly, they asked us a little more input. Especially me, they'd be like, "Hey, this is what hey, we're going to run the ball. Where do you see stress points?" And so I felt like I had a little bit more input on things, and there were certain things that I did well against other people, and they knew we could do things, and so I felt like more part of like the game plan, and I thought that was important because you guys are watching it. I'm in the middle, and I think like when I went to the Chiefs, it wasn't like that at all. We had guys that were fucking in the Hall of Fame, and there was no, here's the film, do this, and guys were, and then all of a sudden during the game, shit's not going well, and they're fucking pissed off, screaming and yelling, mad as fuck, and I always remember thinking, like, if you included us, so here's my thing, like once we go into live bullets, like it's just fucking like I don't want to get coached. I don't need you coming over drawing a bunch of shit. Just fucking give me the game plan, show me the fucking clips, and let me go out and play. And those guys would get super fired up on the side, like this isn't fucking working, and I'm like, well, yeah, we know it's not gonna fucking work because these guys didn't ask our input on the fucking in the game plan. So that was a little frustrating. I would have liked a little more input on how we were going to run the ball and do certain things. Just because shit, you got some of the best guys in the world, and they didn't include us. So that was kind of a negative a little bit. But we had a lot of good players, and like what was wild is as good as we were, we didn't fucking win. Whereas I felt like we were not nearly as talented in Philly and won a hell of a lot more games.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, Jordan was one of our young guys. I remember Jordan was married, And his wife actually went to go visit her family. So I invited him to go out with us. And he went out and had way too many drinks. I think he went home and vomited everywhere. Tried to tell his wife it was me, which was ridiculous. And his wife was so nervous that she was going out with us because it was like Jason Dunn and Tony and me. And like, we used to just fucking go out pretty hard. And so we brought Jordan, who had never been out with us. And I think his wife was probably fucking like petrified that we were going to like get him into more trouble. But he didn't need any trouble getting out of himself.
I love that.
And what's wild was he was not a weight room guy at all. And then, now I'm friends with him on social and he's like lifting weights with these kids. And I always want to be like, hey, motherfucker, you're fucking stronger today in your fucking late 30s than you were in your fucking 20s. I couldn't even get you near the fucking weight room in your 20s. Hilarious. And then he became like a weight room guy later on.
Well, I think we all have to, don't we? At some point.
Shit, I squatted 600 before I was 19. I benched 500 when I was 22. I was always super strong and, played myself and like strength was always the platform in which I played. Anybody I was going to go against, that was the platform I was standing on. They might've been bigger and stronger, more athletic, but nobody was going to hit harder or be stronger than me. Yeah. And that was kind of the way I locked people down.
I love that.
I
love that.
But I'm glad to know Jordan evolved into, cause I like, when I watched his career go and I was like, holy shit, dude, he's actually kind of become a solid player. But yeah, no, good dude. But yeah, it's hilarious that you brought Trey in.
Brought Trey and Jordan.
Well, I was telling you earlier, Trey never learned his fucking place.
Yeah.
Which was so frustrating for me.
Yeah.
John, what are we doing? What do we do? What do we do? I just fucking play it. I'm like, and then the problem was we would do dummy calls and he'd be like, no. I'm like,
it's a dummy call, bro.
Dummy call. Oh wait, hold on. I got the dummy.
Oh my God, Trey.
He was so big.
He's gigantic human.
So 6'8", like 330 pounds.
Yeah.
He had like a 6'11" wingspan.
Yeah.
So I remember when I came in as a rookie, I was playing tackle and they kept showing me all this film and it was of Trey and these fucking mutants. And I remember finally like raised my hand. I'm like, do you have any like 6'5" white dudes that maybe aren't fucking with 12-foot wingspans? And they were like, oh yeah. And so they showed me like, it was like Gary Zimmerman, Jim Lachey, Jumbo Elliott, and like started like a bunch of dudes that looked like me. And I was like, all right, this is how they play. I'm going to play that way. And I remember Juan, Castillo was our offensive line coach, like brain bombed him. He was like, that's so smart. And I'm like,
well, Juan was a defensive guy. So he probably learned a lot working with you guys.
Yeah, he was a linebacker.
Yeah.
And then they brought him over because he was the assistant when
Juan told me I reminded him a lot of you too.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
No, Juan.
I loved Juan.
He great. Die on the sword for you. And, he was a great dude. Still is. But he's actually I want to say he's at Washington now because he's coaching tight ends because we had who do we have on the pod?
Logan Paulson?
Yeah, Logan Paulson, who's in the media. He ran into Juan and Juan called me and we've been playing phone tag. So I figure I'll call him back at the end of the season. But, Juan was great. He was, so when it was Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach of the Eagles, Juan was their quality control guy and kind of worked his way into an assistant. And then when Andy left, he basically made him his offensive line coach.
Yeah, yeah. It's awesome. I love the family tree, man.
Oh,
football family tree.
Well, that first staff that I had with the Eagles is pretty much the coaching cradle.
Yeah.
Our last night I'm watching, it's Chiefs versus Bills.
Yeah.
So it's Andy and all these guys, and Sean McDermott was our quality control coach. Steve Spagnuolo was our DB's coach. And like, I'm looking at the sideline and I know every one of their coaches. And yes, they were all came out of that same Kansas City or Philadelphia Eagles staff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how that happens.
So you have this low-level grade inflammation. You're in this kind of weird new ownership, new team, and all of a sudden you're not their guy.
Yeah, shit just falls apart.
And then
first game of the year too, I have a guy. I'm playing left guard. Get a guy. We're up in Minnesota. Guy gets thrown into my left ankle, low high ankle sprain.
Nice.
I can't push off my left foot. The team docs say 3 to 4 week recovery. The second opinion doc goes, Eb, you're lucky you don't need surgery. This is like a 6-week recovery minimum. I'm working my ass off to get back, as I do. I'm literally leaving a Rolfing session, and I get a call from the head coach, Mike Malarkey, and he's not so subtly suggesting that I'm trying to milk the injury to take more time off.
Did he call you a malinger? I know it's Tex's favorite word.
It's a great word.
Malinger.
The malinger?
Yeah.
He didn't call me that, but it was a very, once again, it was this very isolating, alienating experience relationship with him. I used to chew a lot of tobacco during my football career, and he would always have a comment about it. I'd have a big chew in my mouth going out to walkthroughs, and he'd be like, yeah, you know, I used to dip, and that shit's terrible for him. Like, I know it's terrible for you, man, but this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And it was just like
I have a hard time taking a coach named Malarkey.
Exactly.
Fucking serious.
Seriously.
I'd be like, my dad used to say, hey, the guy's full of malarkey.
Yeah.
Like that was like a 1950s fucking saying. So a coach,
well,
he's full of shit.
Yeah, it is his name.
Yeah.
And
it's very fitting. It's not. It's not just a fancy name. It's also a fitting personality.
Exactly. So basically, I come back from that. They rush me back. We're playing the Bengals. I'm getting my fucking ass kicked by Geno Atkins because all week in practice I'm saying, guys, I can't push off my left foot to move inside.
Yeah. So he's coming inside every fucking play.
Yeah, and he figured it out and is just coming inside every play. I get my fucking ass kicked. I get benched at halftime. Come back, start the next game. We play the Bears. Had a good game. Go out, play Oakland. We lose. At this point, we're 1-6.
Yeah.
Malarkey's giving us a speech saying, we're going to fucking keep doing things the way we've been doing them. And we're going to be making some changes here. So a lot of you guys that are starters who've been around for a while, you're not going to be here anymore.
Does he look right at you and you're like,
I
no.
mean, no, but he might as well have, because then they come and say they're benching me and they're starting this young guy. And it just destroyed me, honestly. I thought to myself, fuck these people, because I've just worked my fucking ass off and given it everything I had. Even this, coming back too early on this injury, and I got nothing in my left foot. And I'm telling you that all week, and then you're benching me at halftime. And when you bench me, you look in my eyes, you say, Eb, looks like you weren't ready. We need to get you back. And then after the game, you're telling the media, the left guard spot's up for grabs. So anyway, that year fell apart. Clearly, they did a great job. We ended up
so fucking dirty.
Yeah, so
God
dirty.
damn it! It's like
we ended up 2-14,
and it's your fault.
Yeah. Everybody gets fired.
Yeah,
I'm a free agent, and I get signed by Chicago. Had one really incredible year in Chicago. I came in as the sixth man swing tackle and got about 20 to 30 plays a game as a jumbo monster tight end,
nice.
Which I fucking loved. Yeah. Had a ball. The Chicago Tribune wrote this huge article about how much more productive the offense was when I came into the game. We had a record-setting offense, missed the playoffs by one game. It was a lot of fun. Really magical year. Came back for one more year in Chicago. The magic had left. There was a lot of ego. It was down to, John, you could probably relate, it was down to the installation of plays just wasn't even the same. Everything was kind of rushed through. We were taking for granted. Was it the
same staff?
Same exact staff.
Wow.
We had this record-setting offense the year before. Came in. I think they kind of took it all for granted and thought we would just be this, monster offense again. And we weren't. The team went, again, like 2-14. Whole staff gets fired. My appendix had exploded during the bye week that year. So I'd have an emergency.
You're like, God is telling me something.
Yeah, God's just saying, but maybe it's time to do something else.
Yeah.
So after that season came out, Chicago didn't want to sign me. I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe it's just time to be done.
Yeah.
I'd given it everything I had that year. So I came back from that appendix. It's one final important note I want to share is I'm sitting in film. I had come back. I had just started practicing again. Because when the appendix exploded, I was back in LA at my high school. They were retiring my jersey.
Nice.
And I was doubled over in pain because my appendix is ruptured. I didn't know it. I waited the day we were supposed to fly back to Chicago. I'm thinking to myself, I can't get on an airplane right now. Something's seriously wrong here. Go to the emergency room. Immediately they do a CAT scan or something. They say, you need an emergency appendectomy right now. Your appendix is ruptured and it's just spewing toxic shit all inside your body. Go right in for surgery. I'm in the hospital for a week. I've lost 30 pounds. I come back to Chicago. They say, not only did I need to have every other day blood tests to test the bacteria and the virulence in my blood, but, they're like, just take a month and just lift weights and get your body back. And so I come back finally, and I'm sitting there in film watching the practice tape, and I think to myself, going back to what we said about what this game is all about, and there's only one way to play football.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the film, and I'm in pain from head to toe, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
I used to want to fucking kill people, and I just have none of that left in me. I'm watching myself in practice blocking this defensive end, and I'm thinking, man, I used to want to kill that guy, and here I am. I have no interest in that anymore, and I can't play this game like that. I can't be here because I'm going to get somebody hurt. I'm going to get myself hurt.
So Marcus Aurelius, as we were talking a little about that stuff, he had an interesting point where he said, every moment of the day you have to say to yourself, is this necessary? And I used to think about that all the time. Like, is this necessary? Is this like the necessary thing? Is this what's required of me? Is this necessary for my life? And I think you get to the point where you're like, just like you said, that moment, and that's what struck me, where you're like, this isn't necessary.
Exactly.
Like I always said, like when I couldn't do the game, when I couldn't play the game the way I wanted, I wouldn't play the game anymore. And I think because I used to see guys that were just like, hey, I even joked like, maybe like the last couple of years, maybe I could just be like a good veteran guy that comes in and gets the young guys ready, like that good luck. And that wasn't in the cards for me. It was like the day I couldn't fucking start. And it was like, if you can't come in and start, I'm like, what? I'm not a good veteran. I can't be just like the, like you said, like the mentor. But no, I never got to be that guy.
That resonates with me so much, man, because exactly. I was just, I didn't have it in me. I was like, what am I doing here now? What am I doing here? I don't have it in me to do what I used to do.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that season, Chicago didn't want to sign me. I looked at my wife at the time and said, I don't know, what do we do? And she said, well, Eb, now it's time to write your book. I was a creative writing major, a
Nice.
philosophy minor in college, and said, oh yeah, that's right.
We dust that motherfucker off.
So my football agent handed me over to a literary agent, and I started this process, putting together a book proposal. Got a lot of good feedback. Honestly, publishers either wanted the red carpet story or the fucking dirty dirt of the locker room.
I got offered a book like that where they wanted me to kind of, there was a whole shit that I didn't want to put my name on. I'm like, the only way I'm doing this is if I ghostwrite it. And I'm not putting my name on it.
Yeah, so I said, you know what, that's not really the book I have to write. And that turned into an article that I wrote for Sports Illustrated called What Does It Take to Stay in the NFL?
Nice.
And got a lot of reach. Really just talked about my experience dealing with injuries, dealing with the physical, emotional stress of playing the game, the pill protocols of the training room. And the podcast I listened to for you and been prepping for this, and I think it connected me back to an article where you talked about actually smoking cannabis, and being high during the game, and what was hilarious was that like the comments. And what I was laughing about was I've told Chris a story. I took a helmet to the shin, season opener, and basically broke my fibula clean in half. They casted me 5 days, and I played 3 weeks later, and then played 17 weeks on a broken leg. Jesus, dude.
And they were giving me so many painkillers that like and so the first came back, it was against Warren Sapp in Monday Night Football, Tampa, and I go out and basically whoop his fucking ass.
I love it.
With a broken leg, and Andy Reid's like, okay, I'm like, I can't take a step with my left, so don't run to my side. I'll just cut him off on the backside and I'll pass pro. I'm off of one leg. And I end up making Madden's horse trailer.
I love that.
But
dude.
the problem was they had given me so many painkillers that I was pretty looped. And so the doctor, one of our doctors, I was like, hey man, I don't know if I can go. Basically I'm looped. I don't think I'm gonna be able to stand up. He's like, hold on. He came back, he put something in my mouth, and I went out and played and was fine. So then I came back and I was like, what was that? He was like, I give you 50 milligrams of Ritalin.
Oh my God, yes.
And so he wrote me a script.
Exactly.
He wrote me a script for it. And, hey, they got to numb it up and they got to, and I ended up going out and playing, but I couldn't have gotten off the bench with the way my leg was feeling. And then they were injecting it and I could feel the bones move every step. And they were like, hey, here's the deal. We don't need you to practice anymore. You're just going to hang out in the weight room, ride the bike, underwater treadmill, the whole deal. We just need you to play on Sundays. And ended up going out and playing the rest of the season.
Wow, John.
That's
some, anybody listening, that's a fucking, you have no idea how fucking heroic and savage that is, dude.
Yeah, made Madden's horse trailer and they talked about how great I was in this. And yeah, I mean, that against All Pro, who I fucking owned for his entire career. So, but as I was listening to your deal, people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, the amount of players that I've seen them pop painkillers and dude, the story of Brett Favre throwing up and then picking the painkillers out of the vomit.
Oh my God, I haven't heard that.
So he was in an event and threw up and then somebody saw him picking the painkillers up. I saw that. I mean, not with Brett Favre, but other guys.
How bad does it have to be mentioned on an injury report?
So the way that it works is that if you're injured, you have to go in the injury report because the injury report gets pushed out. So the guys do. That's how they set the line.
Vegas, yeah.
So if they don't, the NFL fines you. So, but the thing is you have to go report the injury to the training room. And for me, I wasn't a training room guy because a
malingerer, right?
Well, I thought the training room was like herpes. Right, if you go in there, it's going to get worse. And there were training room guys, guys that like to eat their lunch and they hang out there. I just looked at it like it's fucking going to infect you. And the guys that seem to hang out in the training room more tended to get injured more. But I'll tell you this, man.
Law of attraction, though.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But the seeing guys go in, for their vitamin T shots, and then I used to always be like, hey man, mix the T with the vitamin B. So I'd always like pull the full syringe of the vitamin B, and then I'm like, give me the vitamin P with the T, which is the Toradol shots. I remember, and dude, you'll fucking laugh at this, but I was playing in Philly and I was a young guy, and I was always a big monster punch, and we had gone up and played against I'm forgetting his name, against the Giants, against Keith
Hamilton.
And I had effectively punched him so hard, so many times that I bruised my palms to the point where I couldn't make fists.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And so, all week in practice, I had kind of been like using the Leon Cersei, kind of punching like this, and then just trying to mirror dudes, not grabbing, and trying to save my hands. And so I'm sitting there on Sunday, and I went in and I was trying to do contrast, do something to get my hands to open. And I told the doc, I'm like, hey, I can't make fists. And he was like, I got something for you. And that's when he hit me with the Toradol. And I went and sat in my locker, and I was like, all of a sudden my hands opened up and I could make fists. And I remember thinking I'm going to fucking murder somebody today. Whatever they gave me is going to be excellent. And and then I casted them up, and I used to wrap my hands like a boxer, which is what I did when I was younger. So I'd cast those motherfuckers up, and I used to put receiver gloves, tape the tapes, roll the tape. And I remember in pregame, I came out and I was hitting the dude, the guy I was going against, Darwin Walker, so hard. He's like, yo, man, chill the fuck out in pregame. And I was like, yeah, sorry. I was like, it just feels so good. This hasn't happened in a while. And my hands were so fucked up. But then the problem is then the next week, you feel so shitty that you effectively have to get it the next week and the next week. And then you figure out pretty early on that the later I can go to the end of the season and not get the vitamin T shot until the fourth quarter of the season, the better I'll do. So then I used to see guys in preseason getting vitamin T shots. Yeah. And I'd go talk to them you can't get this in the preseason. You gotta wait till it gets cold.
That was the rule.
Yeah.
Except definitely started taking it pretty early in the season. Yeah. But not in the preseason.
Dude, when I saw guys going there getting in preseason, I would fucking go put my arm around them. I'm like, dude, stop this shit. You ain't going to make it. If you're taking the Toradol shots in fucking August, September, you ain't making it till fucking December and January. So.
That's the vet. That's why you need your vets, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to have old vets around because here's the thing. So when I was an older vet, the young guys they would get injured and they would come out and I'd be like, what'd they tell you? And I would always sit down with them and be like, that's fucking bullshit. And they were like, well, this is what the trainer and the doctor. So much so. Do you remember a guy named Scott Peters? Played at ASU?
That name sounds super familiar.
So he's the offensive line coach now. I think he's an assistant for, where is he? He's somewhere, maybe Cleveland.
Okay.
He was one of our young guys. He fucked his ankle up real bad in training camp. And they were like rehabbing him back. And we went in for an install, just bullshit fucking special teams pregame. And as I'm sitting down right behind John Harbaugh, I take his fucking clipboard and I'm flipping through trying to see where I am on the depth chart. And there were names in black and there were names in red. And I was like, why are these names in red? And he's like, oh, those are the people that ain't going to be here tomorrow. I was like, and Scott's name was on it, and he was fucked up. So they were like, hey, we need to get you out there. And they were trying to get him out on the field to get him on tape to cut him. So I went over there, and I was like, hey, dude, because he was like warming up, and he's like, hey, I'm going in the second quarter in this whole last preseason game. I was like, hey, dude, they're fucking cutting you tomorrow. Do not leave fucking pregame if it's on a stretcher. So he goes out there, first snap for warm-up pregame, falls down. They have to bring the cart out. They load him on the cart and take him off. And fucking Harbaugh fucking looks at me, and I just fucking like walked away. That's probably why, because it was hilarious. Because when I left the Chiefs, Baltimore hit me up, and I went in there for a workout, and they didn't sign me because they fucking tried to just lowball the fuck out of me. And I
was
remember,
John the coach?
Yeah, he was the coach. He brought me in, and then all of a sudden I'm there with Ozzie Newsome. He's off. I mean, I started 16 games. I got 100 career starts. I mean, I played on two of the best lines. He offers me fucking minimum no signing bonus. And I look at him, I'm like, I'll just go fucking home. He's like, you're on the street. I'm like, yeah, but I saved my money. You don't see me showing up with fucking diamonds in a Ferrari. And I'm like, yo, dude, I fucking started 16 games on two of the best offensive lines, and I'm still fucking play this game, and you're going to offer me this bullshit? So then he was like, like fucking basically chasing me, talking shit. And I was like, yo, man, send me the fuck home. And I ended up going to the Patriots, and they gave me a much better contract. But, I always wondered.
You played for Belichick for a year?
Yeah, I actually got hurt in the last preseason game.
Oh, wow.
Fuck, that's another one. So like an idiot, about a week before training camp, CrossFit HQ hits me up and invites me to compete in the CrossFit Games.
Wow, dude.
At 6'6", 312 pounds, getting ready to go to training camp. And I was like, what is it? And they're like, oh, it's a set of workouts. You're going to compete, cash prizes. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. Where is it? And I had never really CrossFitted, but I had gone and trained at a CrossFit gym because at the time I was living in Newport, and I used to drive up to Athletes Performance in Carson.
Okay.
And on the days where I was like, fuck, I didn't want to battle LA's fucking traffic.
Yeah.
I would go train at this CrossFit gym. And so the owner talked to the powers that be at CrossFit, and then they were like, hey, do you want to do this CrossFit Games thing? And I was like, yeah, fuck it. What is it? Show up and lift some weights? I'm fine. So a week before training camp, I compete in the CrossFit Games, and I think I fucked my knee up. So when I went to training camp, all of a sudden my knee was hurting, and I think I know what happened. I had a piece of calcified bone on my knee, sheared off and got stuck in the joint. So I played all through preseason, and then, fucking everything's fine. I know it's fucked up, but I'd started my entire career, never been cut. So all of a sudden, last game, I go in, everything's fine. I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to say something after the first game. I'm already vested. We'll see what happens. So like 5 minutes to fucking 3 o'clock, they call me and they're like, hey, we got to release you, but we're going to make a roster move. We're going to sign you tomorrow. So I hung out for 24 hours. And then when they brought me back, they put me back through the physical. And the doctor's like, we can't re-sign you. Your knee's fucked up. Why don't you tell us? And I'm like, well, I've never been cut. Started my entire career, dude. And then they sent me home. I had knee surgery, and then I rehabbed, and teams were calling, and I couldn't get the swelling out of my knee. So the doctor was way too aggressive, and I ended up having to go get a second surgery for him to clean out all the debris and just the amount of swelling and fucked up shit. So that ended up, and then by the time I had missed an entire year, and then what am I going to do? Make a fucking miraculous recovery in year 12? And at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, I missed that. I mean, missing that. I mean, so that was my 10th year, and then I had to miss my entire 11th, and then I'm going to come back and make a comeback in 12. It just didn't seem. I kind of timed out. If it had been a few years earlier, it would have been fine. But now all of a sudden, and as you know, or maybe you don't, like the day you turn 30 as an offensive lineman. Like,
I didn't. I was out by 28.
Everybody talks to you different. Like I remember I had my 30th birthday party, and I came in and like I was like, right, like they're like, well, you're 30 now, and now I laugh about it. I'm like, 30 is so fucking young.
I know, it's so young.
I'm like Brady's fucking my age.
I know,
right? Like and like all these guys. I mean, I was laughing. Who was the tackle that played for
L.A.
The Rams.
Wentworth.
What's his?
I don't know his first
Jason?
name.
The left tackle he just
Yeah,
retired.
he's an announcer now.
Yeah, he was awful.
Yeah,
He was
Whitworth.
awful.
Whitworth.
He was awful. He used to play for the Bengals. He was terrible.
I know.
He's garbage. He still sucked. And they were like over there giving him these accolades. I'm like, that dude couldn't have played on any of the offensive lines. He couldn't even have backed up on any of our offensive lines. And he just happened to fucking just dodge the bullets long enough to get to a Super Bowl and retire on a fucking high note.
Yeah.
But I mean, so here's what's wild. The NFL, and you got the chance to see this, the NFL pre-lockout was a different NFL.
Yeah.
When that new CBA came in, and I remember Tony Gonzalez called me. He's like, John, he's like, we could have played. He's like, you could have played 20 years.
Yeah.
He's like, we would have played as long as we wanted. Tony retired because he's like, fuck, I don't know if there's any more I can do. I could play this game forever because the violence and the ferocity and the way the game was played. I watch it today. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
What were the big changes? Was it preseason, the amount of contact practices? Was it in season? What was the big difference?
Well, one, you're not allowed to hit with your helmet the way we were taught.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go downfield and clean people up. I mean, you don't see them running the ball. They don't put a fullback in there. I mean, just the amount of violence, like quarterbacks aren't hit. I mean, you just see guys, it's real patty cake, and you're not allowed to put your face in there like we used to.
Yeah.
I mean, we were taught to hit head and hands, strike a blow. They also lightened the helmets, so now the helmets are way different. My helmet used to weigh 8 pounds.
Yeah.
Which was like putting 8-pound fucking rocks in my hand.
Yeah.
Now the helmets are way different, so you can't strike a blow the same way.
Yeah. There's a different culture, too, amongst the players, I think. You know, when because I came in and I was through that transition, you know, through pre-lockout, where it was still that. I mean, man, it was like going to war.
Yeah.
You were preparing for war.
Yeah.
You know, and every time you stepped on the field, you were going to battle and you were going to fuck somebody up or get fucked up.
Yeah.
That was the name of the game. And as that lockout happened and the game started to shift, and I think now it's even more different, but it really became, I don't know how to describe it other than guys just taking care of each other now.
Yeah, they knocked all the edges off.
Yeah, it's just like the rules are totally different. You can't use your head.
Yep.
You can't do X, Y, and Z. I mean, perhaps not using your head is somewhat of a good thing.
Yeah, no, I
from a player health standpoint.
Well, Junior Seau killing himself. I mean, really, for me, is what kind of crystallized it. And like, even though I look at the game and it's not the game I loved, I don't know if it could have continued.
Yeah.
So Junior was my welcome to the NFL moment. My second year, we're playing him. Playing left guard, and we were running like a sweep out to the right. And I remember we were on the far hash, and he all of a sudden. So basically, what they had is Junior could do whatever he wanted. The defense was designed where he had zero responsibility. He just made plays.
Yeah.
So he walks out. I'm playing left guard. He walks out on the receiver, and we're running this way. And I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like this dude's fucking 30 yards away from where the ball's going to be. So all of a sudden the ball snaps and I take off running. He runs over the top of me and makes the fucking play on the other sideline.
It's insane.
And then he runs back, pats me on the butt, and it's like, welcome to the NFL, kid.
Oh, my
and
God.
And then a couple years later, I'm at the Pro Bowl, and he sees me, and he's like, you with me. And he proceeded to drink me under the table every fucking night to the point where we're like, he poured me into the limo. And he goes back, helps me in my room, opens the key. I fall face down, shuts the door. An hour later, I go out to go throw up on the balcony, and I look out, and he's running on the beach.
Jesus.
And all I can think of is this guy's a fucking warrior. He just drank me under the table. He's already up training. I'm a fucking pussy throwing up, and this guy's fucking running on the beach at the sunrise in Hawaii. And, realizing now he couldn't sleep. He was in the throes of CT and all these problems. I mean, he couldn't sleep. He was basically drinking himself fucking into a stupor, and even then he couldn't sleep. I mean, he was masquerading it all. I mean, it was in my head, I'm thinking fucking warrior. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you realize on the other side years later, like, holy shit, dude. But
he was tortured.
But that was the culture.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he legitimately set his body on the funeral pyre of football and lit it on fire. Yeah. And we revere him for it. Yeah. And I mean, I think him killing himself was like really what crystallized it for me. That
was a big wake up call.
Yeah, I mean, it had to change. Yeah. But it's awful for me personally to watch football. We watched yesterday with the kids and this, and my wife's like asking me, and I'm like I know it has to change. I know this is the game now. It's like 7-on-7 passing league shit, but this isn't the game that I was brought up in, and it's not the game I love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Well, you saw that whole deal where they called that kind of weird ticky-tack roughing the passer on that guy for Brady. And then everybody was like, and then they went back and showed the first 10 years of Brady's career before the lockout were the hits.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, dude, they're like, I saw one with Jared Allen, who I played with, was my roommate after he got his third DUI, came around the corner and absolutely fucking murdered Brady.
Yeah.
And they were like,
no call.
Basically, yeah, no call. Basically, the guy made a point where he's like, if this happened today, this guy would be suspended for his entire NFL career and would never come. Like one, they wouldn't let you hit Brady like this. Two, they wouldn't allow this hit. Like this was just, and he wasn't even flagged on that play.
Yeah.
This would break the internet, and this guy would never play football again.
Yeah.
And this was just a run of the mill hit. Like this is how far we've come.
Yeah.
But you also can't pay a dude $500 million and expect some fucking knuckle dragger to fuck him up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know the money, I know all this other shit, but I still have this like foot in, like, we got a chance to play the game the way it was supposed to be played, and this game today shouldn't even be called.
Yeah. What do you feel about that? How do you how do we rectify or I'm not sure the word I want to use here. How do we rectify that as far as for ourselves what the game was and what we were brought up in? Because football for me was so sacred.
Yeah.
It was the last bastion of gladiators of warriorship for young men.
It's
and it's really not that. It's just like another entertainment thing now.
Yeah. It's what they've done in our society. They've tried to rip down every pillar we have. You know, I mean, like, I fucking get sick when I hear somebody talk about toxic masculinity.
Oh, God.
I fucking literally, I get like a viral response when I hear these fucking beta bitches talk on this and hearing women and this. And I keep my mouth shut and probably get cut out of this podcast too, because they're smarter than me. But the issue comes down to, I will not, well, one, you can't analyze the past with the lens of the future. And two, I will not allow people that couldn't fucking tie my shoes, carry my bag, or show up and train a single day for me to have any opinion about anything I've ever fucking done. You know, like if you call me on the phone and you're like, hey, and we have a conversation about it, I will take everything you say under advisement, because you did the job that I did. I feel that only people that I played with and that people that lived the job the way we did, you know, the Tony Gonzalez's of the world that played the job at the highest level, like we can have intellectual, intelligent conversations because you understand and you can stand on the platform for me. When I listen to people that never did what we did, you know, whether it be these fucking announcers and the Stephen A. Austins and all these fucks that I do not care about, that had never earned a place. I have no, their voices carry no weight for me. And when I hear about the culture of toxic masculinity in the NFL, and I'm like, well, I don't know how else you do it without, you know, some form of, and when did masculinity become a bad thing?
We need strong men.
Just like you need women to be women. You know, like it's the yin and the yang. And we go back to the, you know, oldest thing, like you need balance in this world.
It's a universal law.
I mean, you know, it's so I mean, that's what I don't know how I balance it. I enjoy watching it, and like my wife and this and my kids, we watched the Eagles versus the Kansas City. No, it was Bills, KC,
Chiefs,
and then we watched the Eagles fucking crushed Dallas, which is fine because I fucking hate the Cowboys. So I mean, that was exciting to watch, and we watch it entertainment wise because one, the quality of the experience is so good on TV with the cameras and the HD in this. I mean, like the fact that I can see lines in like, you know, well, Tom Brady's got a lot of Botox, but you can still see lines in his face. Like that's amazing. So from an entertainment standpoint, I really enjoy it. But watching a piece or watching the games, a little piece of me dies because I remember lining up against John Randall. You know, like the people that should be on the Mount Rushmore, the people that fucking played the game the way they should. You know, hearing John Randall fucking bark in his stance and fucking throw you a nasty spin move and talk shit to you and like fight and battle and push, and like that's the shit that I got up for. And then not seeing that anymore. You know, or seeing a guy get pushed and he acts and falls down like a fucking load of shit. I like see that and I'm like, God, I would be so fucking embarrassed to see that dude trying to flop right there. It's like fucking soccer. Totally, man. So it's an interesting thing. I try to almost look at it as it's not the same.
It's just not the same.
It's not, well, it's different. Like it's probably like, I don't know. I was never a big video game, but like, different versions like Call of Duty 1 or 2, even though I never played Call of Duty, I imagine like there's people that are purists that enjoy the first game, and maybe it's just different 2.0.
Yeah, for sure. So my last year in Chicago, came out of that, wrote this article, and that talking about cannabis and the pill protocols and dealing with depression.
Did you take a lot of pills?
Towards the end, I didn't at all, because opiates, I found out real quick, cause severe withdrawal symptoms very early on. So by the time I got to Chicago, I wasn't taking any opiates anymore.
Nice.
Cannabis really became my main source of pain management.
What did you feel that, or did you start to see people around you experience that
With the
withdrawal?
opiates?
Yes.
Oh, I felt it. I felt it.
That, and you start seeing I'm not kidding you, man. I saw dudes popping those motherfuckers like breath mints, like 7, 14, 20 of them a day. And then all of a sudden you're around those people and they were way fucking different. Like they smell different, they move different, everything about them. And I remember thinking so I'm always a little weird. And then also the longer you play, the more skeptical and mistrusting you become of doctors. So all of a sudden when a doctor's giving you something and I'm like, every ounce of me is telling me that you are trying to fucking kill me at every time. I'm not taking this because you're giving it to me. Because the doctors lie to you. As you know, oh, you're going to be fine in this. And then they see somebody else and they're like, you shouldn't even have been out of bed. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought they were in my best interest. And you realize they're employed by the team, not by the union.
Right. Yeah. No, I felt I had severe withdrawal symptoms after 3 days of prescribed use with Vicodin, Oxycontin, Percocet, all that stuff. Waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with a knifing sensation in my gut, cold sweats, chills, my body just
cotton mouth,
totally aching, craving just more of these chemicals to satisfy this void I'm experiencing, and really never doing anything about the pain, and that's kind of the funny thing. You're still in a shitload of pain. It's just you're totally numbed.
Yeah.
Right.
So it doesn't block the pain. It just makes your brain numb so that you can kind of like disassociate from the pain. Exactly. I didn't take them. I mean, I can't say I never took them, but I didn't take them with any frequency. And I remember just, it was weird. I remember I fucked myself up when my leg was hurt, and I went through that whole thing, and I realized if this becomes the norm for me, I'm not going to be able to play this game anymore. Yeah. Because my leg was so fucked up that as I was taking, I could feel the bone moving and I couldn't feel it. And I remember thinking, if I'd mask the pain, I'm just going to fuck myself up worse. So at least I want to know what pain I'm in. Yeah. So then I just kind of made this deal with, it's so fucking creepy to think about it, but I remember having a conversation with myself. I'm like, what if we just treated pain like an old friend? Come on in, old friend, sit down for a while. Hey, right? And we're going to sit here and rap a little bit, and then you're going to fucking leave. And I just viewed pain as like an old friend coming to visit. So even when I get hurt now, people are like, oh, does that hurt? I'm like, yeah, it's like an old friend. It's a familiar feeling. And he'll be here, and then he'll leave. And then, you almost make this deal with the devil. And for me, it was I made a deal with pain. You're like an old friend. Come in, old friend. Sit down for a little. And then get the fuck out.
Dude, I mean, talk about an ultimate ancient spiritual precept. That's what it is. It's just like anything else, any other sensation or emotion. Pain is just a physical sensation that you're experiencing. So why not greet it as an old friend?
Yeah. Whereas people were trying to mask it and run for it. I remember telling people, I'm like, the day you embrace that motherfucker, it's not going to hurt you the same way. Exactly. You guys are running. And even KT and I had this conversation where he was trying to hide from it all the time. And I was like, yo, man, you got to embrace that motherfucker and look into its eyes and realize this is part of the deal.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So the opiates were fucking... It's interesting because after my career, I did this genetics test that was actually by a guy I know in the cannabis industry who does cannabis genetics testing and can test your DNA just like a 23andMe test and see what your body interacts with best, like how your body functions best, and what cannabinoids, THC, CBD, what interacts with you and what does what. And in that test, it said that I have a variance in my DNA that makes me highly susceptible to opiate withdrawal.
Oh, fuck.
And that really made sense to me because I was like, yep, 3 days after prescribed usage of this shit, I was in severe withdrawal symptoms.
Wow.
So, yeah, by the time I was in Chicago, I wasn't taking any opiates ever again.
Well, here's my thing, and I'm not a big cannabis dude. It's just I don't need anything to I don't need anything to feel tired. Like I can sleep. I got kids, right? So but for me, I would much rather people do that than take painkillers. In all the research and all the people I've been around, it's very rare for somebody to, steal cars, murder families, rob banks, all this for, these opiates. And I mean, you listen to the opiate crisis.
Oh yeah.
It's fucking scary. I'm like, shit, there's no, the stories of alcoholic fathers. I mean, you think about drugs and alcohol, and then you hear these kids being like, oh yeah, no, my dad smoked pot. We used to watch cartoons and he probably ate all my fucking cereal. That's a better narrative I want.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Let the players, because as you know, most players self-medicate through alcohol. I mean, we all did. It's just
a lot of alcohol.
So when I'm sure it might have been changed when you came along, but when I was a young dude, when you got on the plane,
I heard these stories.
So they would give us beers. So you get your lunch, they give you 2 beers, and then the trainers would walk down the aisles, and they had these boxes of pills, and they would shake them. They sounded like rattlers, and you hear the shake. And if you wanted them, you would be like this, and then guys would get pills, and then they would start trading pills for beers. And guys would take this, and you drink beers, and it was. And so it was fucking rattlers. And so we'd hear them come by, and they would be shaking these pill boxes with fucking Vikes in them. And dudes would be like, oh, and they get those, and they'd be like, hey, I'll give you a... And so...
The pill boxes became little brown envelopes.
Oh, so they get rid of the rattlers.
Yeah, and the beers went away.
Yeah, so...
But I heard the stories about the beers and the plane seats.
So the reason that the beers went away was there was after a game, and I can't remember who the coach was. But after the game, because most of the coaches are ex-players, and there's a lot of ex-players as coaches. So the defensive coordinator, and I can't remember if it was my team or we heard the story because I'm not going to place it well. But basically, the defensive coordinator and one of the offensive line coaches who had played against each other started drinking and started talking shit, like your defense fucking sucks, fuck you, and ended up getting into a fist fight on the plane.
Perfect.
That the entire team, and then the players jumped in, and the whole plane turned into a fucking UFC match.
Melee.
And then
close quarters combat.
Yeah, and dudes were fucking each other up
with professional close quarter combat.
And dudes have been fucking taking painkillers and drinking beers, and then the other one is guys would bring bottles of Crown Royal. Because not everybody was a beer guy, so then it was bottles of Crown.
Oh yeah.
And so then I think bottles got shattered. And then I remember, no, I didn't play on the team because I would have remembered being in the fight. But then all of a sudden, the beers were gone. I remember we're like, what happened to the beers? And then we heard the story on ESPN that there was a fight on the deal, and that's when we never got any beers anymore.
Just like that, just changed.
Like poof, like Kaiser fucking Sose.
Well, I'm sure you heard the Wade Boggs story about the cross country flight.
Yes.
50 beers.
That's nothing compared to John Runyon.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys ever heard this. So John's, congressman, and now he's risen to he's basically the fine guy now for the NFL. But I'm telling you, for whatever you say, that guy had one mutant ability, which was the ability to consume alcohol faster than any human being I've ever been around. He's the only guy I know that could get a 12-pack of beer, put it on the ground, and finish every beer before they even fucking stop sweating. That's how much he could drink. He's fucking mutant for booze. And we flew from Philly to Seattle, and I guarantee Runyon probably beat that record. But tell the Wade Boggs story.
Well, that's it. It's cross country. So
50 beers?
Yeah, from Philly. So he was a Philly to an LA competition or home from LA. I forget the order. But 50 beers on the plane.
50 beers in 6 hours is fucking. That's a lot. It's a lot of pissing for me. But yeah, but it was just kind of a different thing, man. Dudes drank, they fought. It was like I don't know how to describe it. Just like fucking. Like Jolly Green fucking giants walking the earth like fucking Vikings.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's turned into something.
Yeah.
Different.
Entertainment. It's entertainers. It's influencers. It's like a social media thing.
So what's wild now, and I don't know if it's better or worse, but when I came in, they were really very leery on us interacting with the media. So even to this day, social media to me is extremely weird. That players are allowing people to have snapshots of their kids, where they live. Like, hey, I'm going to this restaurant. Like I don't know if you had stalkers. We had a ton of stalkers. These weird people where like you'd see them after the game, and then we'd go places and we would see them. There was this girl that like everywhere I went,
there's a handful. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of stalkers, and these people were just kind of wacky. So now with social media, it's like you're giving all the stalkers.
You're giving them the info.
Yeah. So like I still to this day like have this like weird, because I mean we went through all these meetings. There were like people like Hugh Douglas. I don't know if you remember Hugh.
Oh yeah.
Hugh had this guy that used to write, because Hugh used to try to be real funny in the media. Like what he enjoyed doing, like long walks, rainbows, shit like that. He used to try to be a smartass. So this guy started writing him these letters that were these love letters, and he made the mistake of letting one of us read it. And dude, he got absolutely like, there was a lot of wacky shit, man. There's a lot of stuff that went unsaid, but like with the social, man, like I see these guys, especially like flying in Tinder, social media, dating apps. I'm like, oh, like every part of me fucking like,
yeah.
But
I
mean, now they're all in a mindset of building a brand. You know, I mean, the fact that I can now see offensive linemen on fucking like advertisements and TV getting sponsorship deals, that never fucking happened.
Yeah.
This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market.
We've built our online training business by partnering with Train Heroic and helping us deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training.
And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best tech and training, go to trainheroic.co/powerathletehq. And now back to the show.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. So
when you went out, like you got to the point where you're in a lot of pain, you don't want to take the painkillers, and you actually went out and, you smoked. And I think in the podcast or what I read, you played some of your best football.
Yeah, I mean, I figured I've been taking these pills anyway, so why don't I just try this? And cannabis, for a variety of reasons, just made me feel really grounded. And just like the opiates, it doesn't do anything to actually inhibit the pain that you're experiencing. But for me, what cannabis always did was it allowed me to experience the joy of life, just be in the flow of life. And so I consumed some cannabis, make my way to the stadium.
Did you smoke it or eat it?
I'd smoke it, which didn't have, it doesn't last as long, but it lasted long enough to give me a little padding. I just felt more grounded. I felt more in my feet. It felt like I could go out and just do my thing, and I didn't have that horrific after effect of the pills. It just made me feel vacant and void and left me with all sorts of fucked up side effects. So yeah, that's sort of at the end of my career, that became a pretty regular thing when I could do it. And then I started getting access to vape pens, which made it a little bit easier because I could consume it more, close to game time.
Sure.
And at that time, there wasn't very good access to edibles or anything like that. So
the entire thing's changed.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing now. You can get it in just about any form you could think of.
Well, Turley used to smoke. And so he would drive over to my house before practice and pick me up, and then I would drive with work to him so he could smoke in the car. And then he used to make like a weed peanut butter and like make it on sandwiches and shit.
Yeah.
Make cookies. And one pretty funny story, he left this cookie in my car, and I went to go see a movie, and the girl I was with like opened the glove compartment or like the center console, and that cookie was in there. She's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's one of Turley's cookies." And she was like, "You want to eat it?" I was like, "Yeah." We went and saw a movie, so I like knocked it in half. All of a sudden, like 3 minutes in the movie, I'm like looking around, I'm like, this is the longest movie I've ever been to. Got in the car, like, driving in the right lane at 5 miles an hour with the blinkers going on because I think I'm speeding. Like, she's like, slow down. And then I called.
You know how fast you were going? 7.
Yeah, seriously, that was me. She was like, slow down. I'm like, I can't go any slower,
Yeah.
And I called Kyle, and I was like, I ate half that cookie. He's like, what? You're only supposed to have a little bit. I'm like, don't leave that shit around for morons. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You're going to leave that thing? You're going to fucking kill me.
Edibles are dangerous, dude. Cannabis has been an interesting thing for me because lately, or over the last few years, And I think this speaks to some of the adaptogenic properties of it. You know, it was super helpful for me during that time in football when I was dealing with just, you know, you're in an immense amount of physical pain. You're emotionally stressed. It was very helpful to help bring me down, help me get a good night's sleep, help me recover. But since then, where I'm not dealing with as much stress,
It's amazing, right?
it's just like a little bit here and there at night. And I haven't even, you know, I take long breaks off. I haven't had any in a long time, actually. And just even just a hair too much, and I'm completely uncomfortable. I can't go anywhere. I need to just spend the next 2 hours doing breath work, centering myself, maybe get a workout in to bring myself back to center, because it'll take me literally to fucking Saturn. And I have no interest in doing that anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are fighting to not be present.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to do anything to escape.
Uh-huh.
And the minute that you become present in your life, you almost don't want to do anything that takes you away from being present.
Exactly.
Like, how do I, you know, if I have a cup of coffee, I feel like more wired in, more grounded like this. I'm like, I drink coffee all day, but I also know that I can't drink coffee all day because it'll fuck up my stomach. But
You're right. That's exactly what it is.
At this point in my life, I want to be 100% grounded and wired in as deep as I can to have as many intense, you know, good conversations and feel like connected.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to do anything that like disconnects me.
That's the name of the game. Be connected, be grounded, be present. So
what was like, all of a sudden it ends and, you know, you're going to go write this book. Like, there's a weird piece where all of a sudden you've been like unplugged from the matrix and like all your friends and the people. And like I always tell these guys that like, it's so weird when you're an NFL player because all your friends are NFL players. You only go places with other NFL players and you live in this bubble. And then all of a sudden they fucking shoot you out of the bubble.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting around and you're like, your phone doesn't ring, you don't hear from your friends. And you're kind of like, now I'm just not, I mean, the word free agent is by far the best. It's like you're on an island all by yourself and you have to figure out who you are without this. Mm-hmm. And that's a fucking scary thing.
Yeah. It's a super scary thing. I've said often that it's like you just got thrown off the cruise ship and you don't have a life preserver and you're out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
They're like, well, figure it out, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That was a really interesting journey because at first there was this sensation of relief. Like I had completed what I set out to do with my football career. And now it was done. And it felt really good to have this sense of I walked out on my own terms and I felt like I really gave it everything I had for as long as I could. And there was nothing left for me to do in the game. And then slowly but surely it was this slow trickle realization of holy shit. Everything I've been doing for the last 15 years, from high school through my NFL career, was all centered around this game. Who the fuck am I? What am I going to do with my time? How am I going to make money? What do I even enjoy? Every relationship I've had has been through this lens, this prism of I'm this star athlete. And now I have to redefine all of that stuff. And so first I just started getting my body back in order. Started putting my body back together, started losing the weight. I came back to yoga, which my mom had been taking my brother and I to yoga from the time I was about 10, which was incredible for my football career as an athlete, just cultivating resilience. And honestly, when I came to the NFL and I started dealing with those, especially the bad back injury, I really drifted away from yoga because frankly, getting into a fucking down dog or anything else for that matter was just excruciatingly painful.
Sure.
So I came back to yoga, started putting myself back together physically, losing weight, getting myself really strong and lean and tuning into my food. When I left my last year after Chicago, I got connected with this great strength coach in the city in Chicago, and he put me on a ketogenic diet.
Nice.
Which was transformative, you know, and I thought, and that really was the beginning. I started playing with intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet and started dropping weight and just cleaning up my physical body. A lot of the inflammation just went away, you know, all the aches and pains I felt got super fucking strong, got super fucking healthy. And, you know, from there, it just started to be about getting cleaner and clearer. Oh, just every single day, just waking up, getting cleaner and clearer. And that wasn't very pretty at times. You know, there's a lot of emotional healing and mental healing that had to take place. I mean, you know, I went into football at 13, and I didn't have to deal with any of my childhood shit. And so coming out of football, all of it's starting to come crashing over me. So I found 12-step programs, went into Al-Anon, all men's group in LA that was super beneficial for me. Just started to unpack all the shit that I had been really just dealing with for a long time and just never had to look at because I had this blanket of football. And made my way into therapy. In therapy, the therapist said, hey, have you ever thought about meditation? So meditation became a big part of my practice, and just started putting on these guided meditations and going for long walks and starting to tune into this infinite well of stillness and peace inside myself, which just took me into various plant medicines and ayahuasca and combo, and started exploring all that stuff. And really throughout this process, I'm just starting to put myself back together. And through that, during my football career, in Jacksonville in particular, I got connected with the guy who was the music director of the local NPR station, and he gave me a radio show.
Nice.
Where I'd put together playlists of music and do literature readings and make a whole
love it
story. It was so fun, and I fell in love with the medium. And coming out of football, I thought, man, this podcasting thing. So this is in 2015. This podcasting thing was starting to become kind of an interesting platform, and I thought, man, I really want to have a podcast. So I met a good friend of mine, this guy Nate Jackson. He played for the Broncos for 6 years. He was a tight end. Wrote a great book called Slow Getting Up. It's a fantastic book on playing football in the NFL. And we got together, started doing a podcast, which started out as the Mindful Warrior podcast, turned into Caveman Poet Society. And we were just talking about this thing, this life after football, putting the pieces back together, getting your body right, learning about, or just like finding yourself in various places in art, in training, in fitness, and music, and whatever it might be. And I just started getting really good at it and talking about it and sharing my experience. And one thing led to another. I was also doing a lot of cannabis advocacy and speaking on cannabinoids as medicine for football players. I'm sure you already know this, John, but the federal government has a patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants.
Shocker.
Yeah, of course. Weird.
Yeah, weird.
So started just doing this tour, and Kyle really started me on that.
Yeah.
Which was an important part of my life after football and figuring out what the fuck I'm doing with myself. And it just became this thing of being a truth teller, sharing my experience to help people on their journey, to assist them in understanding that they're not alone, that there's answers, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that you're going to get through that pain and that suffering.
It sounds like a journey. And that was something too that I've talked to Kyle extensively about, where marijuana is not the panacea.
No,
it's just one aspect. Like there's like, you talked about ketogenic diets, you talked about fasting, getting yourself healthy. Now, I mean, you're talking about breath work and this. I mean, like I've looked at this like holistic approach because I did the same thing. Like I started with ketogenic diets, and then we did some fasting, and then it's hey, I want to do strength in this, and you kind of go on this journey. And I remember being like, with the cannabis stuff, I'm like, Kyle, like this is just one little piece of it.
Yeah.
And like, but that became all consuming. And I'm like, man, there's so many other things out there.
It's just a tool, man.
Yeah, it's just a tool. But like for him, it was like, it cures everything from athlete's foot to world peace. And I remember being like, yo, man, like this piece is important for you. But I'm like, for me, it doesn't, I don't have the same effect that you do. Like, it doesn't fit for me the same way. Like, I don't wake up and feel like this need. It doesn't do what it does for me. And he said, whoa, and he couldn't see that piece. I remember being like, man, there's so many other things that I want to experience that I don't want to experience in that state. And like, that's, I think what you're showing is like this metamorphosis, this journey from like that you're moving along and you're constantly finding these things. Like you're talking about meditation, which all of these things are all things that I do. And
it's a holistic thing, man.
Well, it's you're trying to like. I think what happens is we gravitate towards a certain life, and it becomes the comfort, and then you get out and you realize almost how broken it is in so many ways. But you almost have to be broken to be good at it. Yeah. And then when you get out, you're like, I don't have to conform to this anymore. I can do whatever I want. I can be whoever I want. And if I don't continue to evolve, I'm just going to be like, this has been my fucking biggest fear is that, 30 years from now, you're like, I'm Terry, Tony, and you're on the sports deck, talking about this weekend's game. And all I know from you is what you did 30 years ago, and it's like, Howie Long, like, he's still fucking up there, and Tony, Terry, and Tommy, and like, they're fucking up there talking about it. They've been doing it for years. Yeah. And we don't know them for anything else. Like Howie was in that Firestorm movie. What else has he been doing?
It's awesome.
It was a great movie. And, I
know. God bless him.
Yeah.
God bless him. But
I think I fucking killed myself.
Yeah, me too.
If I had to sit up there with the pen in my hand and talk about, this year's defense and this and this. Yeah. It's vapid. It's fucking like, and I know they're getting paid big money, but it's not all about money. No. And the fact that they have to go up there and like you got Terry Bradshaw up there, who we only really know about Terry Bradshaw for what he did when he played for the Steelers fucking 50 years ago. Yeah. And I'm sure he's done a million other things that we don't know about. Right. Because they don't need him to do that. They just need him to fucking show him out there, battling Kenny Stabler. Right. And like, to me,
he's acted in a few things.
He has.
As himself.
And he's done some stuff in this, but like, that's not what people know. Like, they know him as the quarterback for the Steelers in the fucking 60s. Mm-hmm. And like, not to say that isn't a coveted job in any way, but like, that to me is fucking a gun in my mouth, where I'm never, people don't want me to evolve into something different than I was X amount of years. You're still playing the same fucking fiddle.
It's tragic to me.
Yeah.
It's tragic. Yeah.
It's a life wasted. I can't say life wasted because it's their lives to live. Yeah. But from where I sit, I don't know if I would want to do that.
That would have been an ultimate tragedy for me, to just live my life as the guy who played for the Jags and the Bears and was a team captain. And
it's like I'm living the same life. I just don't get to go in the building and put on the helmet anymore.
Yeah, which is what I love.
Which is what I wanted to do. Yeah. So now I have to sit on the outside and talk about what other people are doing. It's fucking weird for me.
Yeah. Well, both of you
it'd be like somebody commentating on a porn on sex.
All right, I'm going to interrupt.
It'd be like, hey,
both of you had the opportunity, rhetorician, philosophy minor, creative
writing,
writing major. Yeah. So both of you had the opportunity to think at a higher level and then either read thought leaders or put your own thoughts down on paper. Do you think in the long run that's allowed you to now have this second career, the second life, this phoenix from the ashes?
There is no surprise that Eben is offensive lineman. I found an offensive lineman to be much more cerebral and intelligent than any other fucking players on the field. Defensive linemen being the other side, who are the dumbest fucks on the universe. So, like when we talk about, we see Booger McFarland up there, who was the worst fucking player on the planet, and somehow got into a fucking job, and he sucks at that too, because he's the dumbest motherfucker I know, and he sucked. And I used to literally.
I'm trying to shine some light on this darkness.
I'm just telling you, and as an offensive lineman, seeing Booger McFarland run on the field, thinking to myself, yes, I'm going to have an all-pro Sunday. And then seeing him as an announcer on there and feeling like the same feeling of like, oh my God, this guy's fucking terrible. So like that's how I feel about defensive linemen. Even when they're commentating, I'm still fucking making fun of them. Because I used to challenge them to spelling bees all the time. I'd be like, let's get into spelling bee. Spell pterodactyl. Fucking head would pop off. They'd be like, T? I'd be like, failed, you're out.
It's funny.
Yeah, dude, you could rip on it, dude.
That's your trash talk.
I will say that John and I, we gravitated towards those majors because that's just who we were to begin with, And while most guys are doing general studies or communications or whatever, these fucking pretty meaningless degrees.
Yeah, mundane, just fucking dolts.
Take classes to just get through.
I used to call them troglodytes. Troglodytes, which is a fancy name for fucking cave dwellers.
Right.
Can I get a spelling for that, please?
No, I'm gonna fuck it up, but it's TROCDYT. Troglodytes, DYTES might be troglodytes.
And what's the origin?
It was actually, I believe it was kind of a Greek-Roman word that meant cave dwellers, that there were morons that lived in caves, not in civilized society, that were called troglodytes. But that was, I used to, during an interview one time, they asked me what goes through my mind as I run on the field, and I told them, Ave Caesar moritur te salutant, which is the only Latin I remember, which is, Hail Caesar, those of us about to die salute you, which is what the gladiators would say before they fucking fought to the death. And I dropped that on this reporter, and his fucking head exploded. And, I think about my mom and Jesus and my mom. And I'm like, fuck no. That's not what I'm thinking. Even the fact that I get to fucking run out here at 100 miles an hour in game unis and try to fucking murder people for 3 hours in front of why millions of people scream. What do you think I'm thinking about?
Yeah.
Like, it's the most, it's like the dumbest people are sports reporters and the people on the sports desk and the people in the media. They're so fucking dumb. And the questions they ask and the mundane nature that I was just to the point where I was like, you guys can't be this stupid. And they are. I mean, so, yeah. But so for me, the reason that I gravitated towards my major is one, I like to write and I like to read. And I've always had this opinion that when I get a chance to read, especially the classics, it's like having a one-on-one conversation with the smartest minds in the world. Mm-hmm. And I was surrounded by some of the dumbest fucks in the world. So reading for me was this escape to like have conversations with the most intelligent people that ever walked the face of the earth. You get a chance to read Jordan Peterson's book. I got a chance to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson because I got to read his book. Same with, we were talking about, existentialists and the cynics and the talk that I gave at the collective. Those books that I read and those pieces of information were like me being there. And I always imagined sitting, campsite or fireside and having intelligent conversations. That's why what's so great for the podcast, us sitting here, is such a much more rich experience. And I'm so stoked you came instead of seeing it on a film, on a TV.
Me too, man. Me too. It's a lot of fun.
So what do you think has really helped? Like, we were talking about, hyperbarics and ketogenic diets and supplementation and genetics. All of these things. There's a million things.
Yeah.
And what's wild is I get hit up, if not every day, but at least twice a day, by either somebody who's an ex-athlete, military, somebody that's going through these same kind of, like beginning this journey, and they always ask, where should I start?
Food.
Food is thy medicine.
I would say start there, because if you're eating like shit, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to have too much brain fog, which is going to fuck everything else up. Food, movement. I published my first book this year, The Ebb and Flow, Basic Tools to Transform Your Life. And the tools in there: food, movement, fasting, meditation, and breath work. Plant medicine is sort of on the back end because I think it's another great tool, whether it's cannabis, psilocybin, ayahuasca, whatever that might be. Those are tools that can help you come back to center, which is what it always does. It always just brings you back to center. I have a big bone to pick right now in this fucking spiritual wellness community where everything is about, you gotta come and do the MDMA psilocybin ceremony. It's like, no, I don't. Like, you keep going back to that. Well, sure, have fun with it, but that's not going to bring you any more. It's
like the doctor who just wants to hand you painkillers because they don't know how to fix your injury.
Exactly.
And I have a buddy, CK Lynn, who trained at the gym. He's like one of these plant-based medicine CEO guys who, to be considered an entrepreneur and CEO, you have to go on the plant-based medicine deal where they come and they take you on the ceremony, which helps you enter the plane of being an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
And as he was pitching me on it, I was like, man, I already know what darkness is.
Yeah.
I've already embraced it and looked it in the eyes, which is what we talked about Tate Fletcher, that I think a lot of these people, because they've never challenged themselves in interesting ways, are constantly looking for these things to port them into the darkness so they know who they are. I'm like, believe me, you know exactly who fucking you are and stand in front of millions of people one-on-one fist fighting a dude for 3 hours. I know exactly what it takes to sharpen the blade. I know exactly what it's like to perform at the highest level. You don't have to drop me into some fucking magic hole in, Alice in Wonderland to try to find it.
Yeah, it's a great point, dude. It's such a great point. necessary point.
But I mean, maybe for some people, I mean, fucking go, like there's boxing gyms, there's MMA places, you can go to jiu-jitsu and get choked out.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, physical confrontation and training in battle is more important than having some guy make me drink something and take me on some fucking fantasy ride.
Absolutely. Well, I do Bikram yoga. I teach and take Bikram yoga. You go into that room, it's 105
It's fucking
degrees.
awful. I've done it. It's terrible.
You're confronted with every bit of your shit that you could possibly imagine. You think you're going to die. You just want to fucking get up and leave. Some traumatic memory from your childhood or some fucking thing that pissed you off yesterday. Everything comes up in that place. And there's nowhere for you to go but just be right there with yourself and confront that shit. And so, exactly like you said, there's a million ways to go and do that. And as we know, from a psychological neuroscience standpoint, the only way to change your programming is to come into confrontation with shit that's uncomfortable, adversity, challenge.
Yeah.
Because that drops you right straight through the subconscious into your belief matrix, which is basically the lens by which you view reality. And through that, when you're confronted with all the shit that bothers you, you have an opportunity to change how you behave and make different decisions. And only through practice can you actually get to a place where you start to change the decisions that you make, you know, and by putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. So, you know, when it comes to where do I start, I say food. Then you got to move. Then you got to find time and get still. Tune into yourself. Like there's no better practice process for spiritual development, for self-development than becoming as fucking present as you possibly can be. Because every single moment of every day, you're confronted by things that are going to challenge you. And if you can be present and get yourself out of that reactionary state, which most of us are living in, whether it's because you're just constantly in mouth breathing or you've never done anything difficult in your life or whatever it might be, you're living in a state of victimhood. The only way to change who you are is to do it day in, day out, every moment of every day. One breath at a time, one step at a time. And, you know, so just becoming as present as possible.
Did you ever experience any victim mentality in the NFL? Because what's interesting is I didn't. And then all of a sudden now I hear it a lot more, especially in players, and I hear the narratives, and maybe it's the media is more pushing it, or maybe we have more access. But I feel like...
Well, I definitely had teammates who were always like, coach hates me.
Yeah.
It's fucking coach's fault. I don't know why coach doesn't play me. And I'm looking at the guy going, dude, you fucking suck.
Yeah.
You get out there and you don't do shit. Yeah, you look like a freak. But every time you step on the field, you fucking bust the play. So yeah, no shit the coach doesn't like you. You know, it's pretty simple in football, man.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. You go out there, you do your assignment, you do it really well. Coaches like you.
Yeah, well, coaches like winners. I told Tex a story. We were in the season. They brought in a bunch of guys. You know, typical. You know, like bring in Monday, Tuesday, son, this big dude. I watched him bench. Like I think he benched like 500 for 10. And then they brought this dude out, and he fucking basically he was just, dude looked like a fucking $1 million. He stood we came off the ball. He stood straight up and tried to do this. I like T-kettled him. They cut him mid practice.
They just walked him off the field.
Yeah, they just basically the guy would
At what point in the season was this?
Dude, they do this all year.
Yeah, it was during the season.
They're bringing guys in all
Send a
year.
message to somebody.
It was warm.
Okay.
I just don't remember because I remember it was warm. We were outside, and I remember they cut the dude in the middle of practice. I remember like the little manager assistant dude came over and was like, "Hey," like basically took the guy by the arm and was like, "You got to leave. You're going to get hurt." Like, and they cut the guy. And like I just always remember being like, if you can't do this job, regardless, like for safety, whatever, they'll get you out of there. But there's people that are able to, politic around it and this, and and they want to give chances too. But that's what I always loved about the NFL, the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Can you do the job? And my wife constantly laughs. She thinks it's funny that I tell her that there's a hierarchy in the NFL. that there's players that can play, and then there's like the good players, and there's players, there's definitely hierarchy, and then there's a whole bunch of dudes that are dog shit.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, how do they suck if they're in the NFL? I'm like, because there aren't that many people that can really do this fucking job. And if they are, their names. There's only a few of them.
Yeah. It's true, man.
And there's just a whole lot. And she's like, well, what are they doing? I'm like, they're just warm bodies waiting for fucking superstars to show up. And they have to have guys that are just keeping the fucking position warm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. You wouldn't believe how many guys, I mean, every team I've ever been on, there's at least a handful of guys you're looking at them going, how are you here?
53 people on the team, and there's still
how
layers.
did you get here?
Yeah.
Whose dick did you suck to get here?
Seriously. Or, like I'll just give you an example. I took a helmet to the shin, break my leg, and I remember them being like, we need you to play. This is 3 weeks of broken leg. And I remember telling them, we need you to play. And I'm like, so me with a broken leg is better than my backup, who got drafted the same year, a round ahead of me. And they were like, yes. I was like, holy fuck. And I had to go in there and play. And I remember thinking, like, and they were like, okay, well, like, what do you want us to trim out of the game plan? So I'm over there making game plan decisions. I'm like, I can't run the ball to my side. I'll cut a guy off stepping on my right, but like maybe pass pro because I'll stay on my inside leg. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This guy's getting paid too, So that was a really weird realization that there's guys in like a young guy like Jordan who wasn't ready to play early on and ended up playing himself into a pretty good position because I think he was around some guys like Willie Rofe and Will, and he was around some rock stars as a young guy and played into it. But man, he had a rough go of his first couple of years, and to see him play into a pretty good position, like that was something I didn't see coming. But you know what?
Well, I got a question on this because both of you started as rookies. So what was that expectation then moving forward? Did you have the same expectation for rookies coming in to play with you?
No.
You guys are ready to start.
Not at all.
No, definitely not.
No, I mean, there were, but I'll tell you this, the coaches were always pretty interested when like a young guy could come in who could play. Yeah. I always remember being like, this kid can play this game. Yeah. And there was little things like, for me, the biggest one was one-on-one pass pro. Yeah. If a young guy came in and he wasn't intimidated and he could win one-on-one pass pro, because what happens for me, I wish life was more like one-on-one pass pro in practice. So what happens is that it's usually after fucking team run. What they'll do is we usually the first part of practice was all the run stuff. You do 9-on-7 inside drill, you do all that shit, and then they would kind of like split practice, and then we go to pass. So after team run, we would go to a break, and it was usually some like position shit, and then we would go to one-on-ones or however they broke it up. But for us, we would always go take our reps, and then the young guys got to get in there because we had already done all the pass pro shit for pass. And seeing how the young guys reacted in one-on-one pass pro was always really interesting. And if those kids could bow up and fucking stone up and really play in one-on-one pass pro a dude and not give up and like not get beat or not get punked, that was like big for me, especially in training camp when it was fucking hot and hard. Yeah. If the young dudes went in there and stoned a dude, we would go absolutely like.
So this was like a hype moment. Everybody's watching the pass pro.
More fights came out of spectating one-on-one pass pro because all of a sudden a young guy would come out and a dude would like cross his feet and he'd fucking slam him, and I would come running out and I'd fucking be dancing and fucking people would start yelling. Oh yeah, I was crazy. Like I loved it. I lived for that shit, and I loved it and I loved seeing the young guys step up and try to earn a fucking job and a position in that one-on-one moment. And that was to me, like if those kids went in there, I was on their team. If they got punked or they fucking got pushed around or got beat and fucking fell down, I'd be like, fuck that kid, get him out of here. It's as much so, and then I'd be in your corner or wouldn't. And then the people don't realize as a young dude, if you come in and you play the game hard and the old dudes or the veterans are in your corner to the coach and like, this kid can fucking play, we like him, he'll stay.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Totally true.
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but that for me, that one-on-one pass pro was the fucking difference.
Yeah, one-on-one pass pro is a big one. It's just, for me, it was always about, because you could tell there are guys who would just go in there and you're like, this guy's scared.
Yeah.
Just every whatever the drill was, inside run or team run, or, anything, you're just like, you could see it on the guy, how he moves, how he carries himself. You're like, this guy's scared.
Did anyone ever call that out to you growing up, whether it was a high school or college coach? Like if somebody would, let's say, dog it for 9 sprints and then bust their ass for the 10th, did they call that out?
You just see it.
Or I feel like the cornerback that gets beat and fakes a limp?
I saw that a lot. I saw a lot of guys get beat and fucking fake injuries and the limp and shit.
At Arizona, I was just, and even in high school, I was always the energy center, and I could just see it clear as day. Guys who were fucking around or not giving it everything they had, because I knew that every time, I don't give a fuck what it was, I was just going to give it 1,000%. I would literally die on the field. That's how hard I was going to go. And even when I got to Jacksonville, one of the old vets who was a guard, Vinny Manuwai, who passed away.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah, Vinny was an amazing player, and him and Brad Meester, two vets, they would look at me and they'd go, Eb, you got to like learn how to chill out a little bit in practice because you're not going to last.
Yeah.
And they were right, honestly. And I think there's an interesting balance there of learning how to take care of yourself in practice and give it and play hard still, you know?
Yeah,
I was never very good at that.
There's a way to practice, and what happens is when you're a starter against other starters that you got to play and you have a relationship with, normally what happens is you come off the ball at like 85% and you give a big pop.
Yeah.
And then everybody fights for position at about 50%. So you got to get off the ball fast, because what they're going to do is they're going to turn on the tape, the coaches, and they want to see everybody come off the ball and hit, and they want a big pop.
Yeah. And
then they need everybody moving their feet and getting into position. And the thing is like you have to do it in such a way, whereas then when in the game you go 110%, even though you can't go 110%, you go fucking max intensity, and then you finish the blocks. Like only like you don't necessarily finish your blocks in practice, because the dudes that you're playing against, if you finish their blocks, people are going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And you, like at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than like, even though I make fun of defensive linemen, I need those guys to go play.
Yeah.
So if they get hurt in practice because I'm a fuckhead, then they don't play on Sunday, and that hurts me.
Yeah.
So like it's a little different in training camp. Like I looked at training camp like, fucking let the bodies hit the floor and we'll fucking pack them up. So like it was 100% at all time. But the minute you get into a situation where all of a sudden you get that final cut, and you remember final cut happens, and you walk out on the field and it looks like a special teams practice, because you're like, where'd they go? It was like they got stolen. And then you come out and you realize these are the motherfuckers that we're going to have to play for the next 17 weeks with. 18 weeks now, and you got to not only like give a good step, hard look, but you got to get them to Sunday. So me being a fucking asshole isn't going to help us.
Yeah.
So like it was always like big pop, come off the ball, and then fight to get in position, but not at 100%, where all of a sudden you're trying to like one arm a dude and fucking go down and cut him, or doing a bunch of fucked up shit, So it was always like big pop and then fucking get to position. So that's like the I'll just give you an example too. When I was at the Eagles, I was playing against, and I cannot fucking remember his name for the life of me, but he was the big dude that played opposite Ted Washington. And it'll come to me in a second, but he was a real big dude, but his name was Sam.
Oh yeah. Adams.
Yeah, Sam Adams.
Yeah.
So he had tiny little feet. Right? So he
gigantic
had
dude.
Like 360 pound dude, but he wore like a size 9, size 10. So he had these little tiny feet. So if you could get off the ball and get angle, and if you could get him running, you knew he couldn't stay up. So then I'd give him a shove and he would fall down. Yeah. So it was, we were playing down there, and he I came off and we were fucking battling, and he was like, yo man, like my feet are really hurting. Not necessarily brother-in-law with me, because I didn't do it, but I also knew I wasn't fucking finishing blocks the way I should, but he allowed me to get into position, which was fine. And so, normally I would have tried to road grade him and tried to fuck him up, and I didn't. I just got into position. We had a nice run. Everything was fine. He wasn't unhappy about it. Nobody's unhappy. And then in fucking practice, our offensive coordinator, Brad Childress, comes over to me and he's like, hey, I was just watching film and I saw you not finish that fucking block. And he starts motherfucking me on not finishing this block. And I'm like, God damn it. The one time I didn't want to fucking, because he's this nice dude. And I knew. So it was like this weird thing, and I got called out. And this motherfucker Chili, who's such a piece of shit as a human being, went to Minnesota and was he's a cockface. I hope he's listening to this. He's a fucking piece of shit.
Was this public, or did he single you out privately?
Singled me out in practice.
So public,
Yeah.
like in front of the team.
When he's like, you always fucking tough guy bullshit all the time. You could have fucking road graded that guy and humiliated him. And I was like, fuck you. You never played this fucking game. And so like I also told you about the story where I threw that, I can't remember his name. He was big D tackle, played for the Redskins. I finished him over the pile. Like we were running, the thing went and I fucking launched him over the pile.
Ainsworth?
Aylesworth? That's what I used to call him. I can't remember the dude's name. I'll have to look it up. But I finished him over the pile and had a nice hit on him. And then we went back and he started praying. That was the guy I was telling you he was praying. I don't know if Trey Thomas ever told you this story. But we were playing the Skins and I was fucking beating on this dude and he looked like King Kong and he didn't want to play that day. And then all of a sudden I was finishing him after the play, fucking hit him, like dove over the pile at him. And all of a sudden we're like walking back and all of a sudden I can hear this person fucking invoking the Lord, quoting scripture. And I look over my shoulder and he's pointing at me, fucking praying, like quoting scripture at me, like, fucking Jules from Pulp Fiction. And Trey's like, what the fuck, dude? He's praying for it. And I'm like, fuck his fat ass. Fuck your fat ass. And I start talking shit to him. And so all of a sudden we're going to run like, I was playing left guard. So we were running like little 92 inside right off the right guard. And he's lining up head on me. Come off the ball. He fucking runs basically through my head, buckles me to the ground and tackles the ball carrier for 1 yard loss. And I'm like, nice fucking, basically like lucky shot I get, and he's still praying. And Trey's like, dude, you better make good with him. He's fucking good. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Same play on 2. Fucking another one hits me. Fucking now all of a sudden it's like, fucking 4th and 7 and we got a punt. And all of a sudden I'm like, God damn it. So we're going off and he's like eyeing me. And I was like, yeah, that was kind of fucked up. I shouldn't have tried to do that. And he was like, okay, we're good. And he like pats me on the head and stopped praying at me. And then he went back to just sucking. But, and which was fine. And then I realized if a dude's having a bad day, you don't go and fucking kick the fucking sleeping dog.
Yeah.
So I realized like that was a real interesting moment for me that like sometimes, and that's what played into it. I knew that dude's feet were hurting and he didn't want to fucking play that day. So I wasn't about to fucking do something stupid that forced him to bow up and try to fucking kill me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Brad Childress, and I felt like telling him, I'm like, hey man, if a dude doesn't win, because this used to happen, like there were guys like, I can think of numerous times there was a dudes that were going to give you maybe 1 out of every 20 plays hard. You just had to know which one was going to be hard. Yeah. And then there were certain dudes that didn't want to play that day. And all you had to do was kind of go out and brother-in-law him a little bit and like not make him look bad, because if you make him look bad, he's going to have to reach into the bag and try to fucking pull out a little bit of courage. And then you got a hell of a fucking day on your hands.
Yeah.
So that dude taught me. And then when that dude's like, man, my feet are hurting, dude, don't make me look bad. And I was like, you know what?
All right, man.
I'm just going to get into position and not make you look bad. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't need you to make a play. And we did. And then I got fucking called out on it. And I felt like saying to fucking Childress, I'm like, hey, dude, let me explain to you how the NFL works from your fucking ivory tower up there, you piece of shit. And we got into it. And I fucking called him a piece of shit. And he started yelling at me. And I fucking threatened to kill him, I think. I should have. And then they had to break us up in this. And I was like, dude. I won every block on there. The dude didn't make a play.
was Childress like, hold me back. Somebody hold me back.
Yeah, he was like hiding this. He's like all like this. He was barking at my ankles like a little fucking rat dog. I mean, that's the problem. You have a bunch of dudes that never played the fucking game like that in positions. Whereas I played for guys like, Ron Rivera and these other dudes that played a long time. And they were real smart on this shit. And like I remember Ron being like, hey, man, if a fucking dude's having a bad day, let him have a bad day. Don't do something that fucking forces him to not have a bad day.
Yeah. That's what I loved about Jack Del Rio, Andy Heck. These guys just had, they knew what was up. Man.
Yeah, they played the game.
Yeah. I live right between Burbank and the Hollywood Hills. So I'm right there in the midst of it.
What street? Where at?
On Barham Boulevard, right?
I know right where that is.
Yeah, Universal and Warner Brothers.
I used to, my boy Rick used to live in Toluca Lake. So I used to get,
right there.
Yeah, right. I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And it's good. My 10-year-old daughter's real close by. My mom and my brother are real close by.
Nice.
So it's beautiful, man. I mean, I'm definitely in this place where I'm seeking more and more solitude, and getting out of LA at some point is a big part of my life vision.
Maybe you could have a ranch here in Texas.
Dude, that's definitely in my mind's eye. So, getting some land, getting out to a place where I'm a little more secluded and, I've got a little more solitude is definitely where I'm going, but it's home for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do miss California just because I miss my family. I mean, I grew up in PV, and it's still to this day one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
It truly is. I mean, I drive around LA, spend a lot of time in Malibu, out at the beach, and it's hard to find the ocean, mountains in the same place. Yeah, so close together.
Yeah, you can get up and surf and drive to Mammoth.
Exactly.
So years ago, when I was living in Newport, I got reached out to by Hollywood, like a movie house, about training an actor for a movie. And they were all like, kind of like, you go through all these NDAs and they don't tell you who it is. And the guy lived up in like Malibu area, so they wanted me every day to go train him. And I was like, no problem. Just rent me a place. I'll live in Malibu. And then they were super cheap and they didn't want to do it, so I ended up kind of balking on the whole thing. And then all of a sudden it comes out that it's Superman. And Henry Cavill and them used our training stuff for CrossFit football to get him in shape for the Superman. And I'm like, fuck.
God damn.
I was like, if only. And I was like, when I was talking to him, I was like, just rent me a shitty place in Malibu, because there are no shitty places in Malibu. Yeah. I want to live up because there's no way I can drive from Newport to Malibu every day to be there by 6 a.m.
Yeah. And a 4 a.m. wake up.
Oh, Jesus. At least. And, but yeah, I always like regret it. I'm like, man, we could have trained Superman. I could have lived in Malibu for a little bit.
Did CrossFit ever make its way into like the NFL training that you did?
Not for me personally. I definitely have done it since and enjoy it. And I think some guys were really getting into CrossFit. But for me, coming out of football, it was really, I love lifting weights and I love doing hot yoga, and those have become my jam.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I like lifting weights, and I like doing a little bit of fucking fight and a little bit of conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I did an internship at UT football, 2013, and Kenny Vaccaro, he was pro by now. He came back, and one conversation that we had, he didn't know I was with CrossFit football, power athlete, and his, I guess, just venting a little bit about his experience conditioning with the Saints would be their conditioning tests were these different CrossFit. Well, his biggest thing was, like, he was a first-round pick. He was a dude on the team, but then there was, I guess, dudes on the fringe that were going to get cut, training camp dudes that would just go make the pros look bad. Like, they would balls out on the conditioning tests.
Well,
I heard about that.
Hold against them.
Here's the problem. They never handed out contracts based on off-season fucking training.
Right. And
any team that doesn't have, like, I remember I never once trained in an off-season with any of the teams because they never gave me an off-season workout deal. They were like, we know you're going to show up in shape. And I'm like, well, fuck you. If you don't give me money, I'm not staying here.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you missed all your workouts. And I'd be like, that's fine. I'll miss every workout, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to win every conditioning test. I'll win anything you fucking put out because I'm going to show up in better shape than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I did for my entire career. And so what's wild is they'd be like, oh, so-and-so made 98% of his workouts. That dude got cut in the second week. All those dudes always got cut. And they always thought they could make a team in the off-season workouts. And at the end of the day, you know how you make the team? By being a good fucking football player.
Yeah.
And doing Fran and Diane and all these fucking girl workouts. At the end of the day, like, what is it? Like, I'm going to fuck this one up.
I'm going to let you just...
God
float in
damn
the
it,
wind
you know
here.
exactly what I'm going to say.
Constantly varying functional movements performed at a high intensity.
Submaximal efforts done in the time domains in which they're asking you to do cause a conversion of fast twitch muscle fibers to slow twitch muscle fibers for you to be able to handle that amount of sustained work for the given time period. So effectively putting football players into 15 to 20 minute anaerobic, whatever you want to call it, but they're really aerobic based workouts. You have to have that literally fast twitch muscle fiber convert to a slow twitch for them to have the sustained output to be able to handle that for 15 minutes, let's say, or 20 minutes. Right? Like, that's the Charlie Francis where you're either running 92 plus or you're at 75%. There is no training in that no man's land. So all we saw it do to football players was make them fucking slower, and you lost the ability to generate force in those, in that ATP energy phase.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting.
And I told them this, and the Saints still fucking went and did it. And they didn't, and they pretty much, when the Saints reached out to CrossFit, they reached out to me and I told them this, and you know what they did? They just fucking pivoted and went and did it anyway. And I'm like, this would be the end of their fucking team. And it was. You saw that one kid that Matt Chan was training. Remember the kid, the running back for Denver Broncos?
I do. Moreno, maybe?
Yeah.
No Sean?
Yeah.
No Sean Moreno. Went and trained with this CrossFit dude. Who's a good dude by any means. He won the Rock's fucking deal and, I mean, knows what he's doing in terms of CrossFit. But I remember he reached out and I'm like, don't cross this kid. Don't CrossFit. Singles, doubles, triples, heavy lifts, sprint, fucking rinse and repeat. You know, he CrossFit and that kid got his fucking ass so far out of the NFL he couldn't even fucking see the fucking field.
Yeah. Yeah, he was an incredible player, and he didn't last very long, did he?
No, I mean, he's like everybody, where you look at it and you think, what if I because the CrossFit stuff, when they originally pitched it for me, made sense, this idea of creating a large base of GPP. The problem is that you have to understand that general physical preparedness is like creating like a big aerobic base, which happens in other ways than like doing CrossFit, which is in that fucking middle zone, high glycolytic deal. Football doesn't play in that.
Right.
It's, you got to have a big, strong aerobic system so you can keep recovering for maximal efforts over and over again, which is, 5 to 7 seconds every 90 seconds for anywhere from like 3 to 18 different bouts over a course of 3 hours. And you're going to be at that max intensity once a week. So when you look at the time domains, it doesn't make sense. Assault bike sprints.
Interesting.
Assault bike sprints are a better fucking indicator. Like doing Tabata assault bike sprints are a way better fucking indicator than doing CrossFit. But if you want to look good naked and if you're a middle-aged person and you want to like train good,
head to powerathletehq.com for training. And find the appropriate training program
Way
for
better.
your goal.
But CrossFit has done more to get weights in people's hands. And I think as a methodology for what they're doing, it makes sense. But when you start fine-tuning it for athleticism and sport performance, it doesn't fucking play.
And if that's what you're training for, athleticism and sports performance, head to powerathletehq.com/training.
Do you remember in was it Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 11? You remember where he comes out with the nose and he's like, remember that? Like Matt Damon's got the fake nose on. He's like, the nose plays, and they're like, no, it doesn't. The nose doesn't play. I'm like, whenever I think about it, I'm like, that doesn't play. It's like Matt Damon's fake nose. It
Might have
doesn't
been
play.
12.
They just got really.
plays.
I don't remember.
They should have just called him something else. They sucked.
The Ocean's 11?
Well, no, I thought the movies were good, but the problem is that they were trying to go off of the Danny Ocean, Frank Sinatra stuff, the Rat Packs, which they should have just called it something else. It's like that terrible, like when they tried to remake Red Dawn with.
I didn't even see that.
It was
Hemsworth.
So
Good call.
bad. So
Good
bad.
call.
They should. I watched it. And they should have just called it something else. That way, I wouldn't have to fucking.
Well, that's the
they
same
just
with
pissed
Point
all
Break.
over fucking Patrick Swayze's grave.
Oh, Point Break, dude.
They could have called it Breaking Point.
Why did they remake that?
There's certain institutions that you don't pull down.
Yeah, you don't fucking do that.
Don't remake Any Given Sunday.
No.
And
Roadhouse is next up. Jake Gyllenhaal is playing
Stop.
Dalton. Oh, and Conor McGregor is his sidekick.
What?
he's playing.
Patrick Swayze?
No. Who's
What? Yeah, Conor McGregor's just like a bouncer.
Oh,
But
I was
Swayze
thinking,
is Jake Gyllenhaal.
who's playing Wade Garrett?
I don't know.
I thought that was Conor McGregor.
It's probably going to be. There's no. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is McGregor's senior. You need an old, crusty dude that knows how to fight to play the Sam Elliott.
Yeah,
and they have to have great hair. Like,
yeah, he did.
I can't wait for Jake Gyllenhaal to get a mullet.
I do like Jake Gyllenhaal. He was in that fighter movie, the boxing one. Was it called The Fighter?
Southpaw. No, The Fighter's Christian Bale and Marky Mark.
Yeah, the one that I liked was Southpaw. That was good. He looked the fucking part, and he's actually, I mean, the way the cinematography presented him as having fight skills. So that's a hard thing with like fight movies. The Rocky stuff with Michael B. Jordan, he did great. I mean, they choreographed it, but Stallone's so fucking good on that fight stuff. I mean, dude, think about all the experience he has with all the Rockies. I mean, for him as like the fight coordinator and the people they brought in did such a good job.
Yeah. Rocky's a masterpiece. I mean,
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time?
So this is a big thing for offensive linemen because offensive linemen historically are usually pretty big. There's a lot of movie quotes. Our entire days are spilled with movie quotes.
Yeah, it's true. I have to say my favorite movie of all time is The Big Lebowski.
Oh, all right.
Nice.
Yeah.
We do quote that one a lot.
Yeah.
Like, this is for league play, Donnie. no, Donnie, these men are no. What does he look at me? He goes, no.
Donnie,
Are they going to hurt us?
Cowards. He's like, no, Donnie, these men are cowards. Like, it's fucking great.
It's the best. It's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's highly
the F
quotable.
word is within every 16 seconds or something.
Is
crazy.
it?
Yeah.
It makes sense. I should know that. I've only seen it about 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of great fucking scenes in that.
Yeah.
What about football movie?
Football movie? It's really tight between Any Given Sunday and North Dallas 40.
Wow, old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I had just had shoulder surgery. So I was getting a lot of time at home, and I saw North Dallas 40 for the first time, and I was like, that's my fucking life.
Yeah.
That's my fucking life right there.
I like Revenge of the Nerds as a football movie. Still to this
You're
day,
reaching.
Still to this day, one of my favorite movies is Revenge of the Nerds, and I love it. So I'll get anything, but I got to go Program or Any Given Sunday. And the reason being, when I was a rookie, when Any Given Sunday came out, and my mom and dad and my girlfriend at the time, we went to go see it. And all of a sudden, they're like looking at me, and I'm like, I don't play on this fucking team, but I want to know where it is because I want to play on this fucking team. The dude takes the fucking saw cutter and cuts the car in half.
Yeah.
They're like having strippers at the
LT.
games. Yeah, at LT. Like, man.
Legendary movie.
So Sean Landetta, who was our punter when I was at the Eagles, had played on all those teams with Parcells and them. He was like in year 24 when I was a rookie.
Crazy.
And so Landetta was LT's fucking sidekick, because he didn't drink and do any drugs. He just was all into chasing ass. And LT did all the coke and all the drugs. And when you do that much coke, there's girls everywhere. So he was basically his DD, his designated driver.
Oh my God.
Wherever they went. And so he used to tell me, and so like, you know, because I would always, this is wild too. I would always ask Landetta, like, you know, he'd be like, he was real twitchy. He'd always be like, hey boss. And he'd always kind of like pull his shoulder, like, hey boss. He'd be like, hey boss. You know, and he always did contrast. He'd always go like 2 in the hot, 3 in the cold, and he'd go back and forth. And I remember one day I asked him, I'm like, hey, what's this deal? And he's like, hey, when I was a kid in New York City, he grew up in the city, they used to go to this health club. All the old, you know, like these old Jewish guys used to go to this health club, and they would all go in like the steam room, and they would come out and they would get into this like ice cold tub. It was in the ground. They called it cold plunge. And he goes, so they would basically go back and forth, and they told me it was the longevity. It was the secret to longevity for life. So Landetta's like, I did it as a kid. I still do it. So I figured this guy played 20 plus years. So I would go do 2 in the hot, 3 in the cold. And I would go back and forth anywhere from like, if I had time, it was, you know, 10 times. If I didn't have time, it was 3. But I did contrast every single day of my NFL career.
Wow.
To the point where like I do it in the shower. Like if I wasn't at the facility, I would get ice. And so what's hilarious now is now all these people are doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Landetta told me that in 1999. And so to this day, you know, you see people get in the cold and they're having all these like emotional experiences. I can get in and I have 0 shiver response. So like I'll get in our pool when it's like 30 degrees for like 10 minutes and get out and no shiver response. I'm like, you're broken. I'm like, no, I'm cold adapted.
Yeah.
But Landetta was the stories he would tell us about LT.
Oh my God.
Like he'd be like, come on, like I'd be like, okay, tell us the one about when you were driving in his Porsche and the chick blew cocaine everywhere. Like, so he had these 3 girls in his Porsche. They were snorting blow. Landetta's driving. Something happens and the coke goes everywhere and they get pulled over. And Landetta's like, the guy walks up, it's LT. There's 3 like naked girls. There's cocaine everywhere and he's in a red Porsche. And the cop pulls up on him and is like, what's going on? And he's like, basically the cop let me drive away. LT bought a strip club and had it moved next door to the Meadowlands, so he had a place to go in between meetings.
Oh my God.
Like the stories, dude, were so amazing.
Insane.
But yeah, I got a couple I'll probably tell you off camera just because we don't want them to know. But yeah, like that was like the people that we were steeped in when I was a young dude. So there was this like little bit of rock and roll.
Dude.
And I only imagine if social media had existed when LT,
Oh my God.
he would have absolutely slayed the fucking internet.
Do you feel LT's era, like those offensive linemen, would be saying the same thing about your game?
No. Because I went and had drinks with Jumbo Elliott, who played at that time. And we went out. It was with Lonnie Paulet, who was an older guy, and I was a young dude. Was like, hey man, I'm picking you up. We're going up to New York City. We're going to go out with Jumbo. And we went out with Jumbo, and he was like fucking big, old, and salty. And like the game, because I asked him on that, like, you know, like it was wild. The game was played a certain way, and it played right up until the point where all of a sudden people started killing themselves, and then everything changed. Like I think the game was pretty consistent for how, like, the expectation, and I got a chance to see some of those guys, and I know how we played the game, and then all of a sudden we like got fined like $35,000 in preseason for taking late hits around the pile. That was a big change, where all of a sudden you're like, fuck, I just played the whole training camp for free. So that happened in like 03, 04, and then all of a sudden we saw this, like, all of a sudden I got a letter that I was going to have to go to counseling because I had because of like some late hits and some shit that I was showing a history of violence. And like all of a sudden that stuff where, like, you know, and then all of a sudden that fucking year hit the CBA, and all of a sudden it changed, and then that's when the game changed. So I think that there was like, they saw a little bit of this stuff coming, but it was still there, and then all of a sudden it changed. So.
Yeah.
There's a meme going around, or at least a video of 1975 or something like that, CBS highlights of the NFL. It's just awesome hits.
So this was wild. So when I was a young dude, when we would, this is also another really interesting thing. So when I first came in the NFL, we never came out for the national anthem. So I always remember we would come off pregame, and they would do all the national anthem stuff, and we were always in the locker room, and then we came out, and then after 9/11, they brought us out, and we had to like hold the flag and shake it. And then that's when all of a sudden the Army or the military, the government paid the NFL to become America's game. And then we came out with the flag and honored the fucking, all the soldiers. I mean, and all that stuff. But that happened after 9/11. So when people started kneeling and they were like, why are they, I'm like, we were never out. Like I remember distinctly being in the locker room, hearing the national anthem, hearing the jets fly over, and then getting in the locker room and running out. So we were never on the field for that.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we were always on the field for it.
Yeah. And then it changed after 9/11. I mean, I also remember going to play New York Giants after 9/11, driving to the Meadowlands and not seeing the Twin Towers, and then coming in, seeing all the cops and military in full battle fatigues because they were storing the bodies in the bubble. Yeah. And we showed up to play. I mean, some historic shit we got to play in. It was amazing time, but I think that there was just So and when we talked about the NFL, money and the situation, I mean, at the end of the day, they're a media company, and everything's based upon branding and imagery. So when you have NFL players writing suicide notes and shooting themselves in the chest, saying, I shot myself in the chest because I need somebody to look at my brain. Yeah. Please take my brain and get it. Something is wrong. Like, you can't, it makes me want to cry. Like, I'm literally fucking want to cry inside for the fact that these guys this has never happened to me, so I can't have a hard time conceptualizing it. But imagine being a prisoner in your own mind to the point so bad that the only way I know how to get out of this is to kill myself. But I'm not going to shoot myself in the face because I know this is broken. So I'm cognitive enough, disassociated enough to know that this is broken, and I need them to find out why so they can help other people. That's when you think about it like that, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It fucking brings tears to my eyes to think that you're cognizant enough to know, but you can't. Something's wrong, but you can't find your way out of the maze, and they're not doing anything to help you out of that maze. And so I think the one thing that we've tried to do on this podcast, and anybody reaches out to me, is yo, man, if you got problems, let me show you, there's a recipe for this thing on how, and you did the walk and you found it, what worked for you. But the thing I get worried about is when people stop at one and this fixes everything, which was kind of like Kyle with the cannabis, where I'm like, yo, man, this is just one small piece. Don't continue to do all this stuff, continue to work out, continue to eat, continue to this, just don't think that this is going to cure everything from athlete's foot to fucking world hunger. Yeah.
What's your eating like now? So for me, I've really transitioned to pretty carnivore, animal based. I eat fruit. Yeah. I occasionally eat some rice and potatoes.
So you're going to laugh at this. When I was a rookie in the NFL, the guy that did my diet was a guy named Mauro De Pasquale. and he wrote a book called The Anabolic Diet. And it's pretty much the same diet I've eaten for my entire NFL and through my entire life. It's based upon meat. It's pretty much a paleo diet. And it's always been kind of a cyclical ketogenic, where you go low carb and there's carb refeeds. I got nutrient testing done really early in the NFL career and found out that I was lactose, had some issues with milk and also with gluten. So I've been gluten-free since 1999.
Me too.
So, I mean, I like on occasion I've eaten pizza and some other things. I can't say that like during my NFL career I was 100%, but I've pretty much been 99.9% gluten-free for as long as since I've been retired.
Amazing.
But I eat, majority of my protein comes from animal-based proteins. I eat a ton of steak and meat and chicken and fish. And then I love apples. Like the crunchiness of an apple to me is, it's like the apple a day keeps the doctor away. I'm 100% like, and I think it's the crunchiness. I've never been a big sweets guy. But you know, like my kids like ice cream, and on occasion we have some of that, but it's not really my jam. Candy's not my jam. But I do like fruit. Believe me, like when I looked at the carnivore stuff, and I do like Saladino's evolution into like meat, fruit, honey, and that. Like I think he's a little off base on the plants are fucking evil. Right. So I can't buy into that.
Well, again, it's that thing of you get locked into a dogma. Yeah. It becomes your dogma, and then you're trapped by it.
Well, and we've always eaten organ meats. I fucking love pate. There's a place called Salt and Thyme here downtown.
I went there yesterday.
Did you? I was there. Night. I was there yesterday.
Last night for dinner.
I went into their butcher shop and they have beef pate. If you go up to where their meat counter is, like their meat's here to the right, they have all these different pates. So what I'll do is I'll get a quarter pound of like all of them. And dude, I eat them like Sundays. I'll get like a quarter pound of pate, a steak. And like that's my deal. I take my kids in there.
That sounds phenomenal.
So yeah, it's making me salivate. But so I've always eaten organ meats. So like now all these people eat organ meats, but I do like liver and pate. I ate a ton of meat, and we've always sourced our meat from like local places. When I was in Kansas City, I knew a girl whose dad was a rancher and used to get us steaks, and so I've always done that stuff. But I also know like I do like cruciferous vegetables, and I like fiber, and you know. But for the most part, like you know, the old power lifter that trained me in high school said nobody ever got strong eating out of a vending machine. One ingredient, which was the Vince Garanda, you know, Stone Age diet, which is the paleo diet, which is the same diet that Mauro de Pasquale always told me to eat. So. I mean, when I met Rob Wolf in 2008, and he started talking about the paleo diet, I'm like, oh no, I'm a Mauro de Pasquale guy, and Rob's head fucking exploded. So like that's, and I know guys in the NFL probably thought I was a little weird, but that's how I've always eaten.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, like the carnivore stuff, I'm like, yeah, the majority of my calories do come from meat. Yeah. I just figured that's how fucking big, strong fucking men eat.
Yeah, exactly. You just eat real food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like there's very few things more primal than cooking meat on an open fire.
That's the best.
You know? But yeah, that's great. I'm glad you went to Salt and Thyme. I fucking love that place.
Oh my God, it was phenomenal, man.
They have a charcuterie board.
Got that. It's phenomenal.
Dude, so I'll take my kids there, and so it was the last Sunday we went, and we'll just get the charcuterie board while we shop. And so I'll let them and those savages eat everything, and then we get me to come home and cook.
That. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
So what were you doing in town?
I was coming in town to teach yoga and breath work at this wellness event called Runga.
Nice.
And then I've got a lot of friends here now, and I just
this
like
has kind of
coming
become
here.
the epicenter of shit, hasn't it?
Yeah, Austin's got a lot of dope things happening. So I just came, yoga, doing podcasts. You hit me up. Kyle's been telling me I got to come out and see you anyway. Yeah. And we had connected, and I really wanted to come and do this with you guys. And also I'd love next time, definitely want to come and get a workout in.
Sure. Yeah, man. And, you know, and any jiggy shit you did, we're always open for new age spiritual stuff. So I'm always down to try anything.
I love that. Yeah, man. So I'm just becoming, I've always been a big fan of Texas, but more and more so lately. You know, as California has become a little bit of a weird
Well, if you drive around this area specifically, this hill country, it feels like San Ynez, Central California.
Does. Yeah.
Like everybody,
I love the hill country, man.
well, everybody from California, like you kind of drive around and you're like, I could be in Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
Like it feels like that kind of area.
Totally.
It's super familiar.
Yeah, it's very familiar. That's what I say every time I come here. There's something very familiar to me about this place. So yeah, man, I'm glad to be here, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks for taking the time to come on Power Athlete Radio, dude. It was awesome to connect, and I'm so stoked we got a chance to sit here.
And
Me too.
where can people go to follow, podcast, book, social, all that good stuff?
You could, my website, ebenbritton.com, basically has links to everything. Check me out. Instagram at EDSBritton. That's mostly everything I do is there. I'm doing an event in Venice, November 5 and 6, yoga, breathwork, ice tubs.
Nice.
Check that out. Get all those links and my socials. My book, The Ebb and Flow, Basic Tools to Transform Your Life. It's on Amazon. Also, the audiobook is available on Audible and Apple Books. So
Sweet.
Do you read it?
yeah, I do.
Nice.
Awesome. He's got a good voice. People like listening to deep voices.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.